crafties, denizens of the multiverse, those who use the force known as magic. We gather again in these final days of the year of our Embercleave 2022. We have survived plagues. We have survived mediocre card design. We have survived our own rage on the internet when we discuss everything magic. Yes, crafties, it is time once more for the two mages to reunite. In the green corner, I am Arjuna, one of your hosts. In the blue corner, the man, the legend, the planeswalker, commonly referred to as the Grand Master of Flowers. Everybody,
What?
it is Go freaking Blue. How you doing today, CGB?
Nobody calls me the Grand Master of Flowers anymore, Arjuna. Nobody.
I just had to get that one in there, man.
They have many cool nicknames, and you had to get that one. I can't believe you remembered this. Oh my god.
I pulled it out from the depths.
Yep.
The dark depths.
The dark depths. The darkest depths.
I freaking thespian staged that freaking nickname straight onto you, CGB.
I am so sad that was the name that came back. I was feeling the energy. I was feeling the hype. I was feeling the power, and it just shot through the heart. And you're to blame.
What would an ArenaCraft intro be if I wasn't daggering you? Am I right? Am I right, chat? Let me know if I'm right.
Chat knows. They sit around daggering me all the time.
Don't worry, I might have a mountain out of the sideboard for you later as well.
Oh god, no.
So all right. So anyway, big props to CGB for inviting me back. It's a very special moment that we totally didn't plan.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to chat for being chill while we got this all set up. And CGB, I am stoked to be here, and I am stoked to talk about some magic.
Absolutely. We are doing, this was a charity goal. It was a last minute goal edition. I'm doing a 100-hour streamathon, and it's capped, so I've got to finish the 100 hours. We have 47 hours left to go. We hit the goal for the 100 hours in the first day, so I had to come up with new goals, and the goal for 16942.00 was a tier list for the best standard decks of MTG Arena history. And you
wow.
Yeah. So I was about to start that segment of the show, and you happened to show your face in chat, and we went fishing, and we reeled in a big one.
Well, I showed up for the best. This is the best tier right here. This is like the best number I could have possibly showed up for. So it's only appropriate.
It is. And the point I was going to do for the show, for this segment, is just we pick a deck and we talk about. We kind of just. I mean, it's a tier list. It speaks for itself. S A B C D. Where does this deck go when it was in standard? And some of these we already picked out ahead of time, and I'll try to explain, or we'll try to talk about each deck. But each deck is represented by a card art here. And I was just going to go down the list. Do you want to just dive in, or is there anything else we have to do first?
I'm so ready. I was born ready.
All right. The first thing I have, and these are in no particular order, so if you see one you want to talk about, we can just jump to it. You can say, let's jump to X, Y, and Z. The very first one I have is Wilderness Reclamation, representing the summer of Temur Reclamation. There was a time when one would cast Growth Spiral, Wilderness Reclamation, and allow nothing else to resolve until they finally exploded all over the face. That sounded terrible and was not what I intended. But we are at the 169-420 tier list.
I mean, it's kind of how it felt, right? It's definitely how it felt. I just wanted to shout out Danny T. Law, one of the most degenerate Magic mages of all time. But how could you hate him? Also one of the nicest guys ever, right? And I mean, if there was anyone who kind of exemplified this deck and exemplified the kinds of thought process and crazy brewing that led to this deck, it would be Danny T-Law. So I just wanted to pour one out for another, another member of the Craft Nation and friend of the show who's kind of in semi-retirement, but a really wonderful Magic player.
Yep, miss him.
Yeah. Another thing I want to say about this archetype is that it wasn't busted for a really long time. Like, do you remember, like, we had Growth Spiral in Standard forever, and we were mostly not playing it, right?
Yep.
And I think it was just because they, they'd kind of, the Simic ascension hadn't quite begun for a while there, right? So, so this deck had to get a lot of really good cards before it could actually come together.
Yeah, a whole year. It came out in Magic 20. Was it 2020 or 2021? The last core set, and then I think it just hung out for a whole year and didn't do anything. And then that summer it got. Well, that's not totally true. There was a Turbo Fog deck we'll get to later. But then that summer, after so many bans, it took over. And I think that the playstyle lends to whether or not we move it up or down a tier. Because the playstyle was... like you had to go to end step, you had to remember to put the stop on the end step, you had to QQ to add all your mana, then you have
and wait, CGB, you may remember a time before QQ. In fact, I think that they coded QQ in Arena.
Oh, it's true.
For this deck.
That's a good point.
For this deck.
That's a good point.
So you had to manually, bro. You were on full manual. That was brutal.
That's true. So yeah, manually tapping for this. In fact, many of you might remember this. This was the gambit you could run on Ranked Ladder on Arena, right? You would drop your Wilderness Reclamation, and then the next turn, say you had like 4 lands in your hand and nothing else. What did you do? You moved to your end step, you put the trigger on the stack, and you started manually tapping your lands. Half the time, they would just scoop.
Yeah. They didn't even want to see.
You just slowly tap your lands, and you have nothing. But often they would just scoop because they don't want to sit through it. Oh my god, it was a salt mine of a deck. Absolutely
brutal. Brutal.
So where do we tier list this in terms of the best standard / annoying arena decks of Magic history?
Wow. Okay, well, I will say, like, by the time it finally got to Ascension, it was utterly dominant. I mean, it was such a hard deck to attack, right? You'd try and get them on one angle and they get you on another, right? Playing such busted cards as like Uro, Shock Typhoon. I mean, it was really a multifaceted deck. So, it would be hard for me to put this lower than the A tier. I'm not sure that it was S tier, though.
Yeah, I can't give it to S tier because it took a year and like 4 other bands to really get there. And but as far as just the fears, the salt factor, I'm feeling A tier as well. I am. Yeah. All right. Would you like to pick the next one and you can take the lead on it?
Okay. Well, one of the first cards that jumped out to me was Steamkin. Although here's what I'm curious about, right? Is that you also have Embercleave in this list. I remember the two being played together. So I just wanted to clarify, like, what if there was a separate deck you had in mind when you picked Steamkin.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna check the alignment. Like, can I? Oh no, don't mess with me too much. Okay, I was trying to see if I can add another down here so that I can show what we're talking about. Add a row below current discussion. All right. And then no. How do I okay, this is fine. I see what I've done. All right. There we go. Oh, that N is gonna bother me. I also managed to somehow delete the D tier. See, I have become an amazing content creator in your absence. You can probably tell.
All it took was leaving me behind, man.
Add a row below, and yep, I can fix this. I can learn. I can change. I can totally do this. All right, there we go. So that way people who come in know what we're talking about. There we go. So, what I had for the Steamkin was the pre-Embercleave mono red, the pre-Eldraine mono red, because for me, this one goes back to almost the dawn of Arena. I thought about having, oh wait, change the color. Gosh, okay, chat, I'm on it there. Blue D tier. But yeah, in the very early days of Arena, there was mono red, like from the get-go. And yeah, like you could put Hazoret and you could put Bomat Courier on that first mono red deck before the rotation. But really, like for a year, Steamkin, when it came out in Guilds of Ravnica, was the core of that mono red deck that also featured Experimental Frenzy, Wizard's Lightning. The deck just got you. It just what was he? Skewer the Critics. It's like, my gosh, you're at like 9 life and you feel fine, and they're like bang, 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 you're dead. Light up the stage, reveal 2 lightning strikes, you're dead. It was such a, and I always felt like Steamkin was the thing that if you didn't kill it, you lost. It was just over. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, easily one of the best cards mono red has ever had on Arena. And it really was, you'd get those sequences, right, where your opponent would they'd play a 1-drop on turn 1, they'd play Steamkin on 2, and you'd look at your hand and you'd be like, if I don't kill that thing right now, it's all over, right? And then as soon as turn 3, they were just going off, right? They were lighting up the stage and hitting you in the face, and they'd always manage to get the Steamkin to a 4/4 and attack you, and then go off and do some other stuff and play another one, right? When your opponent got 2 of them down and cooking, it was all over. So yeah, it was a very formidable deck. I have to say that in comparison to the deck we just talked about, the Wilderness Wreck, it was a bit more linear, and if you could shut down the first Steamkin and even the second one, right? If you were like a master, a Stone Cold master, such as CovertGoBlue, and you just had the removal spells and you could shut it down.
The removal spells. Do you remember what we had to work with? Moment of craving.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was rough when you drew that at the wrong time, right?
We had shock
your opponent's Steamkin is a 4/4 and you're just staring down the stupid card. So yeah, and I have to say, Experimental Frenzy, it could go off. It could definitely go off, but it could also brick pretty hard. So, I think that this was a pretty high variance deck considering how powerful it was.
Yeah, it was very powerful. It was a big player in the format. It did have to go up against Wild Growth Walker, if you remember that deck for a while.
Oh, yeah. That was a nightmare for mono red.
Yep. Drakes. If you remember the what was the name of that Drake? There was Crackling Drake, and then there was the 3-mana one with 4 toughness. The Izzet Drake's deck also, I think, figured out how to beat this pretty well, because they had the cheap removal spells and then the 4 toughness creatures. So it wasn't dominant. I'm thinking a C tier.
Yeah, I think C tier works.
All right. Original
Which I'm sure is a knife in the heart for many a mono red mage out there. But you know what? We're telling it like it is.
That's right. And it's also about, they get points for being the best. They also get points for being annoying. It wasn't quite the best. And while I would have called it the most annoying deck in its time, it had nothing on what was to come.
No. Nothing. It was eclipsed upon every vector.
All right, I've got one for you. I'm going to pick the next one. This is going to be a fun one.
So ready.
Lucky Clover, Temur Adventures.
Oh gosh. I can't be objective, CGB. Zero objectivity coming into this one. All right.
Yeah, good. So be honest. Do you want to play it right now?
Oh my gosh. I mean... Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. It's been a while. So this deck wasn't busted enough to ever ultimately make inroads into historic, although Lord knows Aaron Gertler tried. Aaron Gertler tried. And he's such a boss, he probably had a positive win rate with it. But the honest truth is it's just not good enough for that format. So yeah, it's been a while since I've taken that particular colorful pony for a ride. But yeah, I mean, if there's one deck that just makes my brain light up in all of the different ways, it's got to be Temur Adventure.
The thing the thing that I think I hate the most about this deck is the fact that it's just never changed, really. It was just the same. It was Eldraine Tribal from the moment that it came out, and it took Omnath, to like cut into the deck and make it add a color and change the slightest bit. And of course, it won that tournament, a mirror in the final of Temur Adventure Omnath. And then Omnath gets banned, and we'll talk about that later. And then it was right back to the same adventure deck. Or no, it wasn't. They got rid of Clover at the same time.
They did?
That was what did it. The fact that they were like, okay, they even run this with Omnath, and it turned out to be the best deck. That's what made them get rid of Clover. Unreal.
It's true.
Unreal.
It's true. I mean, to think about the fact that like playing Uro in the deck was just wrong, right? You have like a Temur endgame deck in which Uro didn't make the cut. I mean, that should tell you everything you need to know about this deck, right? I remember when people were like, play Nissa, it's so good. And I was like, you're missing the point. It's just like you said, CGB. It's like if it isn't in Eldraine, it's either in the sideboard or you're not running it. And that's it.
And I loved that. I love that the version that was the best deck for the future standard queue, standard 2021, was just it was the version that had Uro, but it wasn't because Uro was busted. It was because it was the version that beat the mirror.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I even remember, it got to a point where like it was correct to just play Mystical Dispute in the main, right? Because like the only things that really threatened your supremacy were, I don't know, maybe your opponent removing your Clover or resolving like, their own big blue threat, or maybe you counter your opponent's freaking Uro and they try to bring it back and then you win. But yeah, you're right. This is probably the most Eldraine tribal deck I've ever seen, and it was a little dirty that it was so good. But for me personally, I had to forgive it because the play patterns were so fun. I mean, this deck, a lot of people didn't realize this playing against it because they knew how powerful it was. But this was a deck that you were usually behind for the first like 5 turns of the game. And it was really precarious, it came down to like, do I stay alive until the Escape to the Wilds portion of the game? If I do, I almost certainly win, right? But it almost never felt like a guarantee unless you had that perfect curve, right? If you got the Clover down on 2 and the Beanstalk Giant down on 3, and then you had like your other 2-mana adventure creature ready to go, then you kind of felt like you couldn't lose.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you had some pretty mopey opening sequences.
Yep. That was the only flaw that it had, is it could get you early. But I think that people did their best to minimize that. Why did it also? This is a hard thing to remember about the Eldraine era. Why was there just no way to kill a Lucky Clover at a profit? Really? You just couldn't do it.
That's so true.
Now we have a braid, but like they didn't print a braid into standard until after Clover left. Like, what the hell?
No. Shield Breaker, I feel like was supposed to be that card, but
it's good in adventures. That's the only deck it was good in.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. It was. It felt that's the thing that made the deck feel so oppressive, is you always felt like you were losing. And let's not forget that other little douchebag, freaking the Innkeeper, right? This is the original card that made everyone hate that phrase Innkeeper. I mean, oh my gosh. And that card, if we remember, kept on being played even after the Clover was banned, right?
What's your tier?
All right. So here's the real question. Is it good enough for the A tier? I want to put it in the B tier because the deck without Omnath was only ever truly dominant for like what, that one dream hack.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm gonna have to say B on this one. What do you think?
I'm with it. I'm 100% with it.
Cool.
All
Nice.
right.
All right. Is it me next?
It's you.
Let's talk about Fires of Invention.
So this is meant to represent the Cavalier Fires deck.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
where my mind went.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about Fires of Invention?
So this was another slow burn. Again, I think it's people often have amnesia when it comes to cards like this. It took a number of bannings for Fires to even be in the conversation, right? And then when Fires did come into the conversation, people just didn't know what to do with it, right? There were a lot of like Planeswalker heavy versions of this deck before anyone ever came up with the Cavaliers idea, right? And I think it was actually, I want to say it was what, Martin User, who maybe was one of the people who spearheaded that innovative version of the deck. So before that, Fires was like, it was clearly powerful, but it was also a little bit mopey. And especially, you know, in an Oko meta, a deck like Fires just couldn't keep up. So, you know, this one was another like somewhat slow ascension to the top in my memory.
Mm-hmm. I felt like it was always playing second fiddle to something, you know? And it got banned along with, it was the banning that included, it wasn't Oko, was it?
No, Oko got banned before it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Oko banning is what allowed Fires to be competitive.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what it got banned with.
Yeah, you're right. It was a package deal.
Yeah, it was definitely a package deal. June 1st of 2020. Suspended, wow. LOL. Wait, that might not even be the right one.
No. Was that historic? They suspended it in historic.
Oh, this is it. Yeah, June. Agent and Fires went down together.
Baby.
So the first version, baby. Cavalier Fires didn't even get the cards like banned.
That's right. I forgot about the actually way more busted Fires deck. Now that, you know, we're gonna have to talk about that deck in a minute because what a oh yeah, okay, got it. Lukka. There we go. So yeah, I mean, the Cavalier version, you know what? I will say this. It was brutal. I think the Teferi, the versions that ran, you know, Tef 3 were like truly blood boiling. And I'm trying to remember when that card got banned.
That got banned with Wilderness Reclamation. Okay,
it did. Because I feel like it was a whole different deck when they got to play, you know, when it was like the Jeskai Fires deck with Teferi. That was like a next level of degeneracy, in my opinion. After Teferi got banned, I think the equation, you know, evened out a little bit.
Yeah, can you name the 4 banned cards in like late summer? Like the out of nowhere ban announcement. It was Teferi, it was Cat, it was
that's right.
It was Wilderness Wreck and
Teferi, Cat, Wilderness Wreck. Boy, I don't remember.
Oh man, I'm dying. I don't have it. I don't have it.
Yeah, I don't have it either. There were too many CGB. It was like every 2 months they were banning like 2 or 3 cards.
Well, chat is either going to get it or somebody's going to do it. Growth Spiral. Oh my God, really?
Growth Spiral. Yeah, they did. They banned Growth Spiral.
Wow. True. And not Uro.
Wow, what a fun.
Not Uro.
Notably not Uro. And then when Uro did finally get banned, it wasn't even the right banning. I mean, it needed to be banned, but that wasn't the main threat at that point.
I've got a C for Fires.
I'll go with it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
My turn?
Lay it on.
Let's do it. Let's do Jeskai Lukka Fires.
Okay. I'm ready, CGB. And I know this deck played, you know, one of your favorite cards ever as well. In the Sky Noodle. So I want to hear you ruminate on this deck.
Oh my goodness. Let's see if I can find like the standard one for the graphics. This can be a lot of fun. So, I remember this deck just busted. Gosh, how do you even describe it? How to even describe a deck like this? Around, turn 5, they would often there were definitely sequences where you could steal 2 to 3 of your opponent's permanents on turn 5. Just yoink them. It was so infuriating, and it definitely hit like a win rate level that you just hadn't seen in standard in a minute. And it was outside of the competitive events. That's the thing. There wasn't like a pro tour or anything. It was just every like side event just blew up with this deck. And it just had this ability to go like turn 3 to Fairy, which anytime you had that with fires was absolutely terrifying. Then on turn 4, you drop your fires and you somehow make a token. That was usually the key, but you could wrath the board, things like that. But you would basically make a token, and then you would use lukka to turn it into the only creature in your deck, which was Agent of Treachery. But it was a little bit more than that, because this was right after Ikoria came out. So companions didn't have companion rule yet.
Oh, they hadn't been nerfed. I forgot about that.
Yep. So the sequence was that you would drop the lukka for free because you have fires. You would turn this into an Agent of Treachery. Then you would cast your Yorion for free, and you would blink your Agent of Treachery. But there were other lines you could do. Like you could blink the Fires of Invention and the Agent of Treachery, which, remember, you haven't tapped any mana this turn. So now you have 5 mana to possibly cast another lukka to hit the other token to be another Agent of Treachery or something else. It was fine. It was totally fine.
Yeah. No problem here. I think that the survival rate after that turn happened was even worse than someone resolving a Sultai ultimatum.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it was just I don't remember ever coming back from that.
And when you played the mirror, like if you didn't go first, it was like it was over.
Yeah.
What were you gonna do? Yeah. What were you gonna do?
Yeah, your opponent had to draw like a complete turd burger to not just run you over.
Yeah. There's not much else to add, because usually the right play was just to go for the land, steal 2 or 3 lands.
Yeah.
How do they win?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now I want to highlight the fact that like this deck played like a clutch of the most infuriating cards ever, right? I mean, the fact that they were playing Narset and Teferi and Fires and Yorion and it was just like nothing good ever happened. There was just never, you never had a turn against this deck where you weren't like, F that card. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it was so rough.
And it was low key. It was also like the best Elspeth Conquers Death deck. Like,
yes,
that was the part that you also like. If you actually killed the Agent of Treachery or got rid of the Teferi or Narset, they just dropped that freaking card.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I mean, those who remember the podcast will remember my long hatred of Elspeth Conquers Death. So, anyway, man, the hardest part of this is deciding where to put it.
Not for me.
Yeah, is this S tier for you?
I am starting an S. You'd have to talk me down.
I'll go with it.
There was no other deck you could play. You could play mono red and hope to kill them on turn 4. That was about it.
Yeah.
That was it.
No, you're right. Let's go with it.
All right. So that was my pick. What you got?
Let's go with Gyruda.
Oh God. Really?
I mean, it's there. It's there. D tier. Let's move on.
Yeah, you don't even want to put it up and talk about it? Okay. Don't want to talk about the history?
All right. Here's the only thing I want to say about Gyruda. Gyruda was like such a miss that it actually became our reference for bad cards that people wanted to get banned.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I remember it's like every time people were calling for a ban, we would hold up the card against Gyruda and we'd be like, you know, so we basically be like, is this an Oko or is this a Gyruda? And yeah, I just wanted to say, like, for those mages who kept losing to Gyruda and couldn't find a way around it, like, I could say some snide and mean things, but what I really want to say is that when you find yourself losing to a deck like this, it's time to ask yourself a couple of questions, right? Like, how am I building my decks? What strategies are important to me? And you know, how do I make myself more resilient? Because let's be real, like, this deck was nonsense, right? It was like such linear nonsense.
Yeah, $50 donation from Anonymous. Thank you very, very much for supporting the kids.
Oh, baby.
All right. So yeah, it's still there. Like when new cards come out and some deck like shoots straight to the top, Ob Nixilis being one of the more recent like examples, people are still like, it's a Gyruda. They said, but they also said that about Sheoldred. When Sheoldred came out, it's a Gyruda, but Sheoldred has lasted, you know. So but it's still the thing that people want. It's the overreaction of week one is what they call it.
Yeah, exactly. the wolf of week one, as it were.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, D tier, right?
Yep, easy D. This is an interesting one. We've done some like basically arena boomer magic at this point.
Yeah,
we're going back.
Sure.
I want to talk about Sunrise Cavalier and Boros Burn.
Oh, let's please do.
Yeah. Now, did you play against this much?
Not only did I play against this deck brought me back with Simic, because. Well, okay, so I'm just going to jump right to the chase. I think this is one of the worst decks that people ever thought was a tier 1 deck. I mean,
get him.
I think that the secret around this deck was that it was just secretly terrible. And I couldn't understand. I remember, like, when I started playing on the ladder and this deck was 50% of the decks I played, it was like I could barely contain my excitement because I was just like, oh, baby. I was like, we are going to redonctipate on this deck so badly. And we did. That's exactly what I did. I climbed up into, like, you know, I don't know. I was probably in the hundreds. I think at one point I was even sub 100 playing in this Magic game, playing a Simic deck, which contained, and this was not a meme, I actually was winning with this deck. I was playing both Alrund, like the Raven Alrund flip card, and CGB, the best Cosima deck I've ever made. Yes.
I remember this deck. Yeah.
So anyway, I want to give a shout out to everyone who ever thought this deck was great, because I farmed you. I was farming this deck.
Yeah. I went on record, like, when this deck started to grow in popularity. Like, I lost to it a few times because my decks just weren't prepared that way, because it was considered like red burn-based aggro was unplayable, so I just didn't have any incidental life gain or 4 toughness blockers at all, you know, in my decks. So I lost to it at first when it came out, but then like as it started to grow in popularity, I'm like, this is great. This is absolutely great. I can brew all kinds of really silly decks to beat up the toilet gamers. Yeah. Dies to an Angel Fire Ignition. Yeah, so many Velomachus Lorehold Angel Fire Ignition decks became tier 1 thanks to this thing's like 20+% metagame share. And that was the thing between, like, I always say it, between times when new sets come out, the share of the most baseline aggro deck, just the most toilet gamer deck, and I do not use that as they are bad players. I use that as the deck you can play on the toilet and win with. The easiest. The share of that deck goes up and it goes up and it keeps rising until a new set comes out, and it doesn't peak until right before a new set comes out because everybody else quits playing standard. So if you can farm that one deck, it can be a rewarding experience. And you know who has to keep showing up to work every day during that time? Me.
CG frickin' B. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I didn't really understand why people stopped playing mono white. I thought mono white was just the better deck across pretty much every vector. I heard a lot of like, oh, but it doesn't trample, and it's the mid-range meta, and people are playing LOL for blah 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 blah. And I was always just like, have you heard of my friend Thalia? Like the best card in the format right now. And so I
Pretty.
just like, I don't know. I was like, if you're gonna play a white aggro strategy that doesn't involve Thalia, in which Thalia is actively bad, and I even remember CGB, you played a version of the deck with Thalia in it, and
Mhm.
you took the hit. You literally took the hit because Thalia was so good, right? So anyway, I was like, this is just a worse mono white. That was my opinion.
You got a D for this one?
I mean, I think it was better than Gyruda. So,
You think that
but
this
having
D tier is
uh
Gyruda tier?
I would put it like D plus, but yeah. Like it wasn't even close to being like Fire's Cavalier level of strong.
All right, but it had a positive win rate, which Gyruda didn't
It
even
did.
have by
It
the
did.
midpoint
So,
of the season.
all
All
right,
right,
C
C,
tier.
C. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's Gyruda tier. D
Yeah,
tier.
Gyruda almost needs its own tier, right?
All right, your pick.
Okay, my pick. All right, you know what? I want to reminisce with the best of them. So let's choose Sultai Ultimatum.
Oh baby, oh baby. Wax poetic for a minute while I pull this up.
Okay, all right. So this deck, crafties, for those who don't remember, this was a deck that I actually patted myself on the back for because I I had the idea along with other people. I wasn't the only person, but it was actually an original idea for me when I sat down and sketched out what would become like a very similar shell for the Sultai Ultimatum list. And the light bulb moment was Alrund's Epiphany, right? That was the card that made Sultai Ultimatum playable. Now, this is another card that I think people forget was just around forever. In fact, like this, we only got to enjoy this deck for like a minute because if I remember correctly, it rotated out. Like the ultimatum rotated out, maybe like one or two sets after Kaldheim. So, so it just wasn't a thing. The deck was not a thing, right? But then they printed this beautiful card, which, and I want to pat myself on the back again because I remember CGB. We had this conversation early in the format where we were talking about cards that might potentially get banned, and I called out Epiphany. I was like, Oren's Epiphany. And I remember you being like, really? You were like, Oren's Epiphany? And I was like, I have a feeling. This is another one of my random called shots that just came through.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
so they printed Oren's Epiphany, and all of a sudden that took Ultimatum from kind of like a meme to like an absolute powerhouse of a deck. So I remember, I was looking at all these cards. I was looking at Binding, and I was like, ooh, Binding is like it's just like the perfect bridge card to get you to an ultimatum, right? Um, they also printed Valky Tibalt, which was like one of the cards I was most excited to try out, and being able to cheat it with the ultimatum was just too good to not try. So it was just like this beautiful combination of Kaldheim cards that all came together like really nicely, and then freaking a Seeker's Chariot to just like bridge you, basically to bridge you in the mid game. And this actually wasn't my original version, but it actually ended up being a Yorion deck as well.
It did.
So just that whole binding Yorion, right? It was such a like basic and fun thing to be able to do in the format.
It was
Even just just to finish the thought, the fun thing about Yorion with this deck was you could do tricky stuff, like you could blink your I can't even read the card, but it was that 2-mana ramp enchantment.
Omen of the Sea. No, Wolfwillow Haven?
Wolfwillow Haven, right?
Yep.
You could even do fancy stuff like you could blink your Wolfwillow Haven and put it on a different land and like ramp yourself for a turn. So there were like a lot of just fun, little interesting kind of mid-game things that you could do to bridge yourself to the late game. And I think that that's what made this deck so fun.
Yeah, fun is a way to put it. No, I enjoyed it, but this was a very hated deck in its time too, and it did kind of have format control, from the arrival of Kaldheim till about the Adventure of the Forgotten Realms came out in the summer, and the Winota deck got good and fast and could beat this, but it had format control for a good amount of time. And there was the combo that a lot of people used on ladder, especially, was Vorinclex Epiphany and Tibalt, which forced the extra turn because the ultimate of either Onyx or Tibalt was too threatening and often just game over. What would you tier this Sultai beastie here? I know that this is one of your babies.
It is one of my babies. Having said that, I think people overstated how threatening the deck is. I think I would probably put it in the B tier.
I'm down with that. It feels I kind of have association because of you, but it does feel a little adventure-y. Once the deck was locked in, you just kind of play it, and if you got under it, you win.
Yeah, it does. It didn't have the versatility of something like a Wilderness Rack deck for sure.
Okay, so it's my pick, I think.
It's your pick. I just wanted to point out one thing. There are some people in the chat saying that rogues farmed the deck, mono red farmed the deck. I just wanted to say that's actually not true. This deck had a surprising amount of game against the faster and more aggressive decks in the format. And it was actually one of the things that made it really fun to play, especially in best of 3. I think this deck, it really shone in best of 3 because you had access to really great sideboard tech like Mystical Dispute, for example, right? I love when you're playing against a smug rogues player who thinks they're just gonna counter all of your big spells and control you and whatever, and you just freaking Mystical Dispute them right out of the game. So anyway, it wasn't as dominant as some of the other decks we're going to talk about, but it had a surprising amount of game.
Yeah, I also want to stress the difference of whether or not Arnie Huschenbeth farmed a bunch of pros in a top 8 playing rogues against Ultimatum versus you trying to get out of gold playing rogues against Ultimatum. Chat.
Yeah. Which, you can say about rogues in general. I mean, anyone playing rogues at the top tier was just next level, right? It's been a long time since we've seen a deck that had that high of a skill ceiling.
Let's talk about it. It's my pick, right?
Oh, sick. All right.
Rogues.
Let's do it.
Rogues. Let's go. Dimir Rogues Standard. Let's check this one out. I remember, I think I played this the second day after Zendikar came out. I played some kind of a rogues deck. This was in a meta with Omnath and Uro. And I was like, this is still very good.
Yeah, actually, you were an early adopter of rogues. You were playing rogues before they were cool.
Yeah, it's true. People said you couldn't do that in an Uro meta, and I still won a lot of those games. You just they spend 4 mana on Uro, you spend 2 mana on countering it, and you keep beating them to death. I hope they try next turn.
Yeah.
But this
deck
is annoying.
Walk us through it, CGB. Just what this is so in a lot of ways, this is kind of a quintessentially CGB deck. So tell us what made this deck so amazing.
First of all, I have to get a different version. This version is trash. There's 4 Vantress Gargoyles in this thing.
Oh my gosh, I forgot when people were playing this as a Laris deck.
There we go.
Next level. Oh, flashbacks.
Seth Manfield was the first person I saw. If you remember, the top 8 of Pro Tour Omnath was 7 Omnath, 1 Rogues.
Yeah.
And Seth Manfield was playing Luris Rogues and still made top 8, what that nobody else could do. But we were missing Rune Crab. We have to get Rune Crab here on the screen so that people remember.
The salt.
People have to remember. You would scoop to turn 1 Rune Crab. It happened every day on ranked.
Yeah.
In Mythic, it would happen. Absolutely wild.
I did it sometimes. Yeah.
And here's the other fun part about it. This one set a new bar for me as a content creator. Because I had been paying attention to analytics, but And for the most part, I had noticed a small difference. If I like lost the first game to an established meta deck and just got run over, people would turn off the video. So I was like, okay, I have to at least be competitive or win the first game. I can't just get rolled by mono red in 4 turns, or people will just not even care what the deck is. They don't want to do that. They're not interested.
Yeah.
Rogues set a new bar. With Rogues, I noticed in my analytics, if the opponent played turn 1 Rune Crab, my viewers just left immediately. They did not care what happened in the game. They did not care what deck I was playing. They left the video. In Mythic, even when playing for like top 1200, while making content, I was scooping to Rogues on turn 1 because it wasn't worth playing the game.
Wow. It was like the PTSD was that severe, right?
Yes.
They couldn't even stand watching someone else play against it.
Yeah, they couldn't, even if I beat it. And that was the frustrating part, because beating Rogues, the type of decks that you and I play, we don't play like Get Under You, White, Taxes, Aggro, or Mono Red Burn. The type of decks that we play, beating Rogues was, pun, an adventure.
Yes.
it took a very
yes, it was.
It took a very long time. It took a lot of choices. It took a lot of understanding of when you could do what, how to do what. You had to know, like, when you were getting milled from 6 to 8 cards, that Into the Story was going to come into play, and whether or not you had to have mana open for it. Like, you had to know everything. And so those games would take like 20 minutes, and they would be some of the most exciting games you could ever play. I've won games against Rogues with no cards in my library. It's so thrilling, but nobody would watch it. It hurts so bad.
Oh my gosh. No, you're so right. I think that's one of the things that gets missed is, okay, I raged against this deck as much as anyone else, but some of my favorite games in that format were against Rogues. And it was a uniquely challenging deck. And when you found that right combination of like, you mystical dispute the right spell at the right time, you cling to dust your own graveyard, right?
Yeah.
And you line a couple of things up, you save that removal spell like for the key rogue at the right time, right? And you force through that one spell that you really needed to force through. And oh my god, there were few feelings better than just crushing a Rogues player like that.
That's
true.
Amazing. And it's also worth noting that Rogues was an incredibly popular deck with casual players, which is stunning. Like, I know a lot of players who contacted me constantly saying that they got their first Mythic off Rogues. It was the first deck they enjoyed playing that much. I remember that Anna Rudolph, chess player, won like a kind of, it was like trying to be a PogChamps chess type event for Magic, and it was done in the EU. They brought in people who had never played Magic before and had them play like a mini tournament, like influencers from other games. Anna Rudolph's a chess player, and she played Rogues, and she loved it. Like they spammed crab emotes as a good thing in her chat because they were always happy to have to draw the crab. But she won that event, like dominated it, and it's kind of like people do miss Rogues. I hear from people pretty often that they miss Rogues. It's kind of surprising, but it's true. Where do we tier this baby?
Where do we put it? I mean, it's got to be somewhere between A and B, I think. I mean, okay, so in the hands of the right person, people could probably argue that it was S tier, but I think it would be disingenuous to really put it there, because especially on the competitive circuit, it was never like the fully dominant force that people thought of it. Like it was like it was the play queue nemesis, right? This was the deck. What are people saying?
Yeah,
oh man, pushing for that S tier, right? I don't think I can give it S. I don't think I can.
I can give it an A.
Yeah, I think A is where it belongs.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Let's take another trip down memory lane. I want to talk about Blizzard Brawl and Mono Green.
Yeah, I was kind of using this to represent both the green decks before the first rotation of like Eldraine, and then after. I'm not sure which deck to talk about more.
Okay.
Both were very, very good. So I'll kind of let you take it where you want to take it.
Okay, so let's start in the Wilderness Wreck days, because I think that the surprising thing about Mono Green was that it ended up being quite good against the Wilderness Wreck deck. And this was like one of the most fun and challenging matchups. This was also like peak Rint era, okay? This was before the rise of Rumty. This was back when Rumty was, focused on being an absolute legend in some other game. But so there was this really, really fun kind of like, it was almost like a game of chicken when you were playing against Wilderness Wreck, because that control game was really strong, but we actually had some really amazing tools to combat them as well. We had some like hexproof threats that we could bring in. And it was such a matter of pacing, right? The pacing was everything. You also had the incredible Gem Razor that you could use to blow up your opponent's Wilderness Wreck at the right time. And it was such a fun deck to play, man. It really was. And it was really a big brain deck. I think that that's something that people missed about mono green, especially during this time when it wasn't, it was not like the top deck in the format by any stretch. And so if you wanted to play it, you were like a mad lad, right? You had to pray at a very specific altar to get results with this deck. But when you got the results, it was so satisfying. So I think that like, I just want to remind people that like, for those who were playing mono green before it was cool, it was a really rewarding experience, and it taught me a lot about Magic. And I will always think fondly of that time.
I think it's worth noting that in competitive Magic a long time ago for the boomers, the deck was literally called Stupid Green when you played like big green creatures. But
yeah,
so it kind of rewrote the history on that. I was surprised that people mentioned this for the tier list. These are all chat suggestions, except for maybe a couple I pulled off the top of my head. But yeah, chat did suggest mono green. I can't really put it very high on the tier list, but I thought it would be a fun one to talk about, especially having you on the show. I knew it would be fun to talk about. Yeah,
for sure. I think that this deck was, and not to the same degree as Rogues, but I do think that it could produce surprising results with higher skill level, And we saw this like even when like Seth Manfield and PVDDR brought a mono green list much later to Worlds, right? So, the archetype kind of basically since that point, right? Since kind of like that Eldraine standard, basically all the way up through until, what would you say? I'm trying to remember when was kind of the last set that mono green was really like a thing.
Oh, right up until the rotation last fall. When Blizzard Brawl finally left, when Innistrad Midnight Hunt came out. Yeah, and they lost pack leader. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it really was like, it was always in the meta, threatening. Of course, there was that, standard 2022 queue, I think, which, mono green was pretty dominant in. So yeah, I just want to, and of course Rumty like basically just like pantsing everyone on the ladder every single month by just like, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like the deck could do some stuff.
He held #1 Mythic for like 2 months in a row. Yeah. On mono green exclusively.
Yeah. So I mean, the deck was not a joke. Is basically what I want to highlight. Like I think like however good you thought mono green was, it was probably a little better than that. Yeah.
I'm still, for me though, I'm still going with
still want to go with the C tier?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, all right. I would say for the average, it's C tier.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
I am going to throw up the Cavalcade of Calamity. The Cavalcade mono red deck, because for me, this was another one where I had forgotten completely about this.
Yeah.
And yeah, chat was like, they wanted this one on the list. They fought for this one. I would have not put it on the list at all, but let's have a look at the Scourge of the Past. Just get this right up on screen. Have you ever seen a more evil pile of cards? Have you ever been more terrified in your life of what your opponent could do to you than 4 Goblin Gatherings, 4 Chandra's Spitfires? This is pre-Torbran, by the way. Torbran did take it to a new level.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You should talk about this one because I'm pretty biased when it comes to this deck.
Really? Yeah. I'm interested, but I'll just say that this was never the best mono red deck. This was another deck I would chalk up to if this still gives you nightmares, you have a gold problem.
Exactly.
And
couldn't have put it better myself.
And or too much play queue. Maybe you're addicted to that play queue. One of the best things you can do if you actually want to enjoy your results more is stop the play queue. $50 donation from Steven. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Steve.
But yep, the color challenge, another thing that could be your problem.
Ooh, that one cuts deep.
All right. But yeah, this one, I want to D tier it. I really do.
It's D tier. I mean, that's what I was gonna say. This is another deck where, exactly like you said, if you're consistently losing to this deck, you got to kind of look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself what's going on. You gotta watch a little more CGB content to kind of get a sense of what's really cooking in the matter.
All right, I threw myself a softball. What's yours?
Okay, so I'll throw myself a softball. Tibalt's trickery.
Oh,
but here's the question: are we talking historic Tibalt's trickery?
Nope, this is standard. This is standard.
This is all standard. All right.
Yep.
So this was like the most infuriating deck that I felt like I couldn't lose to. When people complained about this deck, I was like, get good and play Sultai Ultimatum, nerds. that was my answer to this deck. I think this deck perfectly proved why Coma Cosmos Serpent is not a very good card. Like a person would like high roll and they'd hit a Coma, but they'd be on the draw and you'd just Doomblade it. And then you'd be like, what now? What now, sucker? So, but I know that this deck was incredibly salt-inducing for you on day one. So let's get into how did you end up feeling about this deck?
I hate this deck. I hate it so much. It is like, see, I've learned from talking to people that like there's kind of two ways of a deck of appreciating it. I guess three ways of appreciating a deck like this. One, you actually like to play it. I guess. Those people must exist because, man, did they play it. Two, you see your opponent do this and you're like, yeah, okay. I'll just like play a good deck and beat it, I guess. It's fine. Go ahead if that's your choice in life. Make your choice. Live and let live, I guess. I just win. And then there's three. There are people who, like, at their core feel like they understand Magic as Richard Garfield intended. And when they see such a perversion, such an absolute disgrace to their favorite thing in the world, whether it beats them or not, whether they lose or win, you're just... the blood boils, the rage, the chemicals, and I just... Oh, what is wrong with them? Don't they want to play Magic? This isn't Magic. This is a dumb slot machine. Why do they play it? They can't even get out of Platinum with this. What the hell? Why would they play Slot Machine the Gathering with a 40% win rate? Why do I have to put up with them playing Slot Machine the Gathering? I came to play Magic, Arjuna.
Slot Machine the Gathering is a great way to put it. And Slot Machine the Gathering gives you a good estimation of how often people actually win with it. But CGB, it always seemed to happen versus you, right? That's the problem. I'm like, this deck is losing against like 7 out of 10 other players, but why does it seem to beat me? Right? Yeah, why do I have to be the poor fool that gets my face danced on because I didn't have the right interaction on turn 2 or whatever, right?
And it is worth noting, even with a sub 50% win rate, this deck got Tibalt's Trickery banned in best of 1. That's how much enough people hated it like me that they did it. They pulled the trigger.
Yeah. No, that's the thing, is that like even when you lose to this 40% of the time or whatever, it feels so bad when you do, that, I understand, right? And this was like, the funny thing about this deck, it was just good enough to get banned, right? So like, I'm thinking about some of the other stupid like turn 2 combos that people do. Like, what's the one with that little minion that lets you cheat a big double strike dragon into play and you kill him on
Minion
turn 2?
of the mighty.
Right? So like, that's an example of a deck that like, it just doesn't win enough to get anything banned. So this deck just managed to squeak like just high enough above that bar that people were like, all right, we got to do something about this.
And they did. But where does it fall on the tier list? I was gonna put it next to Gyruda.
Straight D tier for me, bro.
Yeah.
I would have fought you if you'd put it any higher.
Understood. All right. Does that mean it's my turn again?
It's all you.
I want to talk about the Kethis combo.
Oh, baby.
Do you remember the Kethis combo?
I do.
It is one of the most forgotten, busted decks that literally didn't exist. Do you want to tell the story of the deck, or shall I?
You probably remember it better, but my vague recollection is that it was just sitting there for the entire format, and someone finally was like, wait, hold on, we can build this deck, right? Isn't that kind of how it went?
Kind of. It's a little more dramatic, I would say, from a competitive standpoint. Thank you for the $10 donation for Extra Life. I'm glad you're enjoying the content, Lawrence. So what I'm going to say is that this is a checkhouse pile. Andre Strosky, Stanislav Sivka, Ivan Flock. And the format, had been basically stagnant all summer. It was Vampires and Golos Field of the Dead.
Oh my god.
Yep. Kethis had been in... Kethis, was that the new one on the... I think it was like the new printing on the block, and then the rest of this stuff was like from Dominaria and Guilds of Ravnica. It's been here a long time. Yeah. And what happened is there was an MTG Arena qualifier for the next big MTG Arena event. And these were the live ones at the time, where people showed up like in person and played Arena against each other with computers sitting back to back. Esports. This was the esports Magic era, I think we should call it. And this group of people who are not qualified for the MPL, were not part of the MPL at the time, in the background developed this deck and then busted it out specifically for those incredibly difficult Arena qualifier that happened at the end of August, and they dominated it. I think they put 3 of them qualified in that event, and nobody saw it coming. The deck literally didn't exist until that day, and it only existed for about another 30 days before it rotated.
Yeah,
it was literally just there and gone. And I remember when I saw this deck had made day 2, before the finals of that tournament had even been played, I saw that 3 of this were in day 2, browsing deck lists, fired it up on Arena, jumped on ladder. I went something absurd, like 22-1, and just went from like new platinum straight to mythic. I think it was like early August of that year. I was just like, boom. Yeah. Oh, this is freaking sweet. Okay, it was September that year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, just an out of nowhere, in my opinion, absolute tier 1 deck, but makes the list because it was also A, freaking hard to play, insanely hard to play. B, took forever to win. You are establishing a loop here where you mill yourself out so you have enough stuff in the graveyard so that you can then start re-looping and mill the opponent out with the diligent excavators. And eventually Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, was added just because that took so long. It wasn't a realistic win con on Arena for anybody who wasn't from the checkhouse.
Yeah, people were roping out, you know, that was a real consideration.
Yeah.
Definitely like some genius deck design here. People just identifying that if you got enough cards in the yard, Kethis could just basically take you all the way. I think one of the kind of underrated or underestimated aspects of the deck was the amount of times that you could recast Mox Amber and generate more mana, right? I think that was part of the 5-head of the deck. Was that you would have these turns when you'd cast like 10 Mox Ambers or something like that, right?
It was the mana loop. It was how you got your mana.
And so much of the slot machine of this particular deck was like, how many Mox Ambers can I mill and recast? and like, is that going to get me to winning this turn, right? So this was one of those. This was like, there are some combo decks where you spend a while setting up, and then you're fairly certain once you start going off that you're going to win, right? But this was not that deck. Like, this deck was really, you really had to choose your spot when you were like, okay, I'm going to try to go off this turn or not. And it was not a guarantee a lot of the time, right? And the times that it was a guarantee were usually when you were like, okay, I have 2 or 3 Mox Ambers in my graveyard. That's what's going to let me win.
Yeah. I want to give this, I mean, it's a tough one because it was there so briefly and it was so hard to play. I want to give it a B tier, but it's really because it represents something that's very lost in Magic. People think the meta is solved, everything's over, they give up, they stop trying. And that, I mean, this is a rare occurrence, but when it happens, it represents like that brewer's heart and soul that you can build. Maybe the best deck out there just hasn't been built yet. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I think B tier is good for it. Like, for the brief moment that it was good, it really was. It was really good.
Yep. And the first time you played it, you were like, oh my God, this is the most brilliant thing in the world.
You just felt so 5-head, right? All right, Zenith Flare, let's go.
No.
I mean, this one can be short, CGB. I just wanna, I don't think I'm not gonna drop the F-bomb on CGB's stream here because this is for the children and whatnot. But like, F this card, man. Like, screw that deck. I mean, if there's a single arena deck I could just punch in the face, that stupid cycling deck. I mean, man, I remember, like, do you remember? You'd have like maybe you'd have like a burn spell. You'd have like a Bone Crusher Giant in your hand, right? And you'd be on the draw, and your opponent would play a turn 1 Fox, and you'd be like, I'm dead. I'm dead. You're like, I'm never gonna kill that thing now. You know, I'd be in my mono green deck looking at that stupid fight spell, and I'd be like, this turn 1 Fox is just gonna take it all away. And that was just the beginning, man. I mean, it's like, if you didn't lose to the Fox, you lost to the, you know, to the Zenith Flare. And if you didn't lose to the Zenith Flare, you lost to the stupid Drowned Stinger. Screw this deck.
Dude, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm supposed to even say about how much I hated this. But I think the thing that made it bad the worst for me is that eventually, by the end of the format, like, pros were playing it too. And I had to watch people play this deck because I was for a website doing like some coverage at the time. Plus I was also, you know, of course, looking for content for YouTube. And it's just okay. So chat wants me to mention the priority stick. Yes. Yes. That still bugs me in a way that very few things can. The priority stick of just, they play a land and they pass, but they have to wait till your end step. It made everything take forever, and they had it every turn of the entire game because that's all the freaking deck did. And you know what? If you wanted to show up in Arena and just be successful, and this was while Arena was getting a lot of new players, it was the best budget option to just play it without all the fancy lands, just play Boros Cycling. It was the cheapest deck. You can't be too mad, but...
No, it was an amazing budget deck. It really was. Yeah. But, you know, I here's the thing. It's like, I don't blame people for playing the deck. Like, the deck was winning, like you said, and in some ways it was a pretty cool deck. But I do blame the psychopaths at Wizards for but just like, this was another like tribal, like Ikaria tribal.
It went too far, man. It went too far. I mean,
it did.
I heard it ruined Limited. I didn't play that, but like, I know you did.
It really did. And it's a shame because Ikaria could have been maybe not an all-timer, but it really could have been like an A-tier draft set if it hadn't been for that archetype. So yeah, you had, I mean, CGB, this is the level it was, right? Like, it didn't matter what busted mythic you opened in Ikaria, if there was a Zenith Flare in pack 1, you took it.
And
right?
it's uncommon.
Yeah, it's an uncommon. I mean, people like LSV was talking about this set, and he was like, if I'm pack 1 pick oneing, I'm just gonna take a cycler. He's like, I'll take some rando like common cycling card that I will never cast. I will never tap mana and cast the spell because it's just a more winning strategy than anything else. And when you have that kind of a decision being made, you've messed up, right? You've really gone astray with your format. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna chalk this up to like not enough play testing, because it could have been so beautiful, and Ikoria really was a cool set.
All right, chat spam. What tier should it be? We've been threatened if we don't put it in A tier that we will get Zenith flared on our upkeep. I love the F tier votes. There isn't
F
one.
tier.
F
this card tier.
Honestly, like I think it's up
probably
here.
Really. I wouldn't put it in A. I'd probably put it in B.
Okay, I'll agree on B. I'm close to A just because by the end, like the pros did figure out it was a very competitive deck.
It was strong. It was a strong deck,
and it made me angry.
Yeah,
it made me very angry, Gyruda.
Sure did. B+ for the Zenith Flare. All right, what do you got?
Oh man, Phaedrock.
I love how we're just dancing around all of these busted cards.
Well, that's our content creator brains at work, because we have to keep them hanging on. We can't let people leave. We know what they want. We know what they want to hear. But let's talk about Phaedric Mutate, one of the very few decks one of the very, very few decks that we actually did an entire podcast about.
Yeah.
An entire podcast.
Yeah.
Is this the one?
This deck.
This isn't the this is close to the one. I'm trying to find
close
like the
enough.
list. Yeah, I'm trying to find the list that really took off.
They didn't end up running See the Truth, right?
No.
I think the best lists didn't run that. Yeah. I mean,
it's gotta be in there somewhere.
While you look for that, I'm just gonna go on a mini tirade.
Do it.
About this deck shouldn't have existed. And the reason this deck shouldn't have existed is that Goldspan Dragon should have been banned from Standard. If there's ever been a card more witness protected than Goldspan Dragon, I can't think about what it is. I mean, Uro lasted a long time, you know what I mean? Uro had friends in the Mafia, okay? But Goldspan Dragon, it turns out, was like running the Mafia, you know? Goldspan Dragon was like the head of the FBI. Goldspan Dragon was never, ever going to get banned. And I don't... Why, CGB? Why was that card allowed to have its full run in Standard? I will never understand.
You want to know? You want to know?
Is it alchemy? Is it alchemy?
Has Wizards ever banned a dragon?
That's actually a really interesting question.
World Gorger Dragon, maybe they banned from some formats, but from Standard, I can't.
Probably never from Standard. Yeah. I mean, is Goldspan Dragon okay? Look, Shivan Dragon is iconic. We all know that. But is Goldspan Dragon secretly just like the best dragon ever printed?
Oh, we need to. I mean, you're asking for a dragon tier list, is what you're asking for.
I think we need a dragon tier list. That'll be like a higher donation tier right here.
Do you want to bring Arjuna back? We're gonna need $30,000 for Extra Life, and we'll do a dragon tier list.
Oh, baby, I'll do it.
You heard it here. He said he'll do it. Yeah, I think you're right. And by the time, like, Phaedrock was kind of a side meme. It was a very interesting deck, but when they figured out how to pair it with Goldspan was when it really got degenerate. And just, we played that deck. We both prepared for that show. Like, the things you had to do, the things that, it was just all about untap with Goldspan, right? Like,
Yeah.
that was it. That was what the deck was really about. It felt like there was so much more to it until you dialed in on what was important. And what was important was untap with Goldspan win. And that's what the Japanese team that kind of brought that to a Mythic Championship online at the time really figured out. And my God, I think that it broke me. I stopped watching competitive Magic round by round because I used to watch every round of those things, and it broke me. I couldn't watch a top 8 of that. I couldn't do it. Full control mode, Goldspan Dragon, Billion Trigger Mutate. I was done.
It's just like, it was like a treasure orgy, right? I mean, and there were so many little things that was secretly freaking unbelievably annoying about this deck, right? Like, you churn through their mystical disputes, you churn through their counter spells, and suddenly they just bust out Sajiri Shelter from nowhere, right? And it was just like, come on, come on, bro. So yeah, I agree. This deck was just like utterly infuriating across every vector, and it's all because of that damn dragon.
So where do we put it? Because here was the thing that kind of saved it, I think, from being a banned deck, or just not many people played it.
Yeah,
it was true. Like I would play standard every day. Maybe I'd play against it, 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah. I think this was it was like a one tournament deck, right? Like it didn't really have longevity. So, I mean, overall, I'd probably put it in the C tier.
I'm with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it was strong. It was a strong deck.
If you don't want to dance around busted cards, then pick one, Hotshot.
All right, let's go with Winota.
Oh, man, this is gonna be a tough one to find the right deck because Winota was just.
Oh, I know.
Winota was just there for so long.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So crafties may remember that I actually went on a long, unhinged rant about Winota when it wasn't banned. I want to say, I think it was when Oko was banned. Oh, there was another like high-profile banning, kind of like around this time, maybe Oro, and they didn't ban Winota. And I remember poor CGB had to sit through this while I just flew off the handle for like upwards of 10 minutes talking about how toxic and horrible this card was and that no good could come of it being in the format, right? So Winota is like the classic example of a card which, when it's not good, it doesn't matter. And as soon as it's good, it's a problem, right? And there's no fun zone with Winota, which is the problem with the card, right? Like, what you hope when you print powerful cards is that they're going to be strong enough that people will play them. They're going to be able to win. There'll be ways to interact with them. And like, there's like some sandwich, right? There's like a layer of the Magic sandwich in which there's fun, right? There's interaction and fun to be had. And Winota just like, it was like putting a grenade in your Magic sandwich. There was no fun, right?
I agree.
So that's my problem with Winota. They could have tweaked it, right? If it hadn't been 6 cards? How many cards do you look at?
For Winota, yeah, 6 cards. Yeah.
Yeah, if it had been less than 6 cards, it could have maybe been a fun card. If a couple dials had been tweaked on the card, maybe it could have. If it had been a 3/2, maybe we're talking. Right?
A 3/2, yeah. It had to be a 4/4. It's actually very hard to kill.
Yeah, maybe if it had cost like 1 white, red, right? If they changed the mana cost a bit. There's a lot of dials they could have tweaked with Winota to just make it a bit more of a fair card. But yeah, it I don't know, man. I don't have much good to say about Winota.
It was kind of absurd how it just hung out there as so many things around it got banned and moved, and it kind of like, did it ever get banned? Did Winota rotate out? Like, I know at the very end when everything else from Eldraine and such had been banned, Winota was considered a top tier deck at that point. But
yeah,
I think it took that long. I really do.
It did. It was another one of those end of the format things. Let's yeah. So Psy Master calls out that it was banned in Pioneer. It was also banned pretty quickly in Historic.
Yep. Nerfed in
so
Alchemy really quickly.
yeah.
Historic
So I
Brawl,
mean,
it's nerfed.
I mean the card does work, right? I mean, it's like if you look at the broader picture of the card, when a card is kind of like a cross-format threat, the way Winota is, you have to kind of sit up in your chair. And I think they, I will say that they did a good job of like not printing anything into standard that made Winota truly busted. But I mean, I don't know, like when you're attacking with like a 0-2 goose and getting like a Winota trigger off of it, this is something that feels fundamentally wrong about that. Oh, wasn't there? I'm trying to remember, didn't people use the sloth in Historic for Winota? The arboreal grazer. Like people would play
some
these
people
like
did, yeah.
dorky non-human creature like ramp creatures and then just like
wait,
get in with them.
There was a deck, wasn't it like 4-color Winota Yorion? That happened, right? I'm not making that up.
No, I'm pretty sure that was the thing.
No, that was a competitive deck, a 4-color Winota Yorion pile, and yeah, it had Grazer, and it had Neoform. It was Neoform Winota.
Oh, that does the Neoform Winota deck.
Yeah,
yes,
that was a real deck.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I mean, you're right. The hardest part with Winota is figuring out where to put it because it's been kind of all over the map, right? It's
I just found a deck to put on the screen and I had to go to my own YouTube. There's so many Winota decks out there. Look at that face. That's the face of a Winota. Here's the face of a Winota gamer. Somebody about to pile up Winota on the opponent. Just looking for those triggers. Baby.
Fresh-faced, hopeful, devilish CGB.
Oh, God. Yeah. So I'm not sure. Like I guess I'd honestly like the salt factor is there and the danger level is there and the eventual format dominance is there, but I'm still between B and C.
Yeah, B is probably overall a fine place to put it.
I think so. I mean, it does have a brokenness to it, It
does. If it was just standard, I might consider C, but I think overall it's kind of a B card.
Okay, sweet. My turn?
Lay it on us.
Aspirate.
Pirate.
This is to represent the era of mono white when standard became a 2-deck format, basically after Crimson Vow released. It was Allrun's Epiphany, Goldspan Dragon versus mono white.
Yeah. I mean, this is the tricky thing about Aspirant, right? Is that like it doesn't look as good as it is.
I love that somebody already said S.
S tier, baby. Let's go. I mean, Aspirant was just like sneakily one of the best 2-drops ever printed. And I remember CGB. I remember when we were looking at the Zendikar spoiler and we read this card and we were both just on it. We were like, this is going to be like, if white aggro isn't all a thing in the format, this card is going to be dominant. And boy, did it live up to that.
Check it out, the blue light glasses. I haven't worn them. I haven't worn them in a long time, and I wore them for this stream because my eyes are wearing down because I've been streaming for over 50 hours. But yeah, I went back when they were just a fashion choice.
Yeah, it comes full circle, man.
It does. Yeah, I also remember in the spoiler being like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a very crafted card. Yeah. And it did not disappoint. It basically became a part of every single white deck. You were wrong to not play it. I remember there was like one of those Velomachus Lorehold type combo reanimator decks, and I was still like, I think my 2-drop is just supposed to be Luminarch Aspirant.
Yeah,
I think that they just have to deal with it. You put counters on your Velomachus, you get bigger spells. Yeah, they just have to solve this problem no matter what, or it's just going to outscale. Like if they let it sit there, then their 4-mana play is not going to be bigger than the Luminarch Aspirant. It's just going to pound right through it.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that I hated about this card, I felt like this card allowed mono white to be like a sneaky like mid-range deck or like a sneaky like Timmy deck. It's like when you're playing mono green and your creatures are getting bossed around by stupid white humans because of all these counters, like for me there was something deeply wrong about that, right?
Oh yeah.
I would get my face pounded by like these like 9/8 like white human creatures, and I'd be like, what is happening?
Yep.
This isn't the way it was supposed to go.
Yeah, mono green was a good example of this, because if they didn't kill that thing, they would just get outsized, which was gross. Absolutely gross.
Yeah.
It felt really weird to play a deck like mono green and have the mono white creatures be pushing you around. Plus they could fly. The mono white creatures had flying.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
We don't have Paulo in this particular list, Legion Angel among the first things, but once Elite Spellbinder joined the mix, it got really difficult, and green didn't keep up. And then the era of mono white that kind of started from Luminar Caspirant, it lasted until its rotation. There was mono white took the crown from mono red, and they never gave it back for the whole time that card existed.
It's true. And I mean, let's pour one out for Faceless Haven as well, for secretly just being like one of the best aggro cards ever printed. You know, I mean, and you actually, I remember you called this one out on the podcast. You were like, Faceless Haven's going to be a player. Yeah.
I think I said it could be the best creature land of all time.
And I don't know, what do you think in retrospect? Is it?
Mutavault is better.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with Mutavault, right?
Yeah, I didn't play with Mutavault in Standard. I watched that Standard, but I didn't participate. So that was one I missed when I said that. But I would say for Arena, and we are talking about the Arena era here, there's been nothing. What are you going to do? You're going to say Den of the Bugbear and Hall of the Storm Giants are better? Then you didn't take enough hits to the face from Haven that kills you, you know?
No.
And it did take a ban. It did get banned for it.
Yeah. I mean, these decks were just such a powerhouse, dude. Yeah, especially like when they got to play Thalia. Oh man, it was an embarrassment of riches.
So, where does it go?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm leaning towards B. Was it ever? How far did it get in that World Championship? It was kind of a fringe deck in like tournament Magic, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I think that there were two Japanese players who like played deep into day 2 running it when people didn't really see it coming, and that was before Thalia.
I'm tempted to put it in the B tier.
I'm starting to wonder if it makes A, but I can see plenty of other things coming up that I'm not as afraid of as mono white. So yeah, I'm good with B. Yep.
Cool. Yep. B+.
Yep.
B+ for the Aspirant. All right. All right, CGB. I want to give you some PTSD now. All right.
Thanks.
And I'm sorry, but we have to talk about this card because it's here. Let's go with the cat.
Yeah.
You knew. The mouse was hovering right there, man.
I knew.
CGB, is this like your most hated card of all time?
Yes.
Got him. We got him.
So, and a lot of this has to do with how much I love Magic the Gathering Arena.
Mm-hmm.
I love Magic the Gathering Arena, and I've taken plenty of heat for being Magic Arena's #1 cheerleader since its introduction, but it still is, in my mind, the most fun, best way to play Magic the Gathering. You can sit down, you can fire up a client that looks cool, that, you know, lets you do all the things that you could do in Magic, has the Magic rules engine, and you can play it on your phone. And if you had told me when I was a kid that was ever a possibility, I would have lost my freaking mind. And I'm like, we live in that world, and it's so cool, right? Then you take the best thing about Magic, that quick, snappy, throw the thing on the battlefield, pass back, you move. I throw my thing on the battlefield, pass back, you move. You take that, and let's just take that and grind it to a screeching halt and make it so that every single second of every single turn is just waiting for the opponent to, for the love of God, click the button and pass priority on your stupid cat and your stupid food token oven trigger. Just make it end. Make it go away. Oh my God. Oh my God, why does my 5-minute game have to be a 15 to 20 minute? I put my cat in the oven, I bring my cat out of the oven. Oh,
Preach. Preach. I mean, and I have to say, people were dunking on the cycling deck for the priority stick, but I do think cat oven decks have to take the cake for like the ultimate priority problem, right?
Yeah.
And it was like one of the things that I hated about it was that sometimes like there was plenty of reason to think about when you sacked a cat. Like it was actually very important at what moment you did it, right? And then the thing that made it more complicated was that sacking the cat was a decision, right? And then bringing it back with the food, that was a different decision that you had to make. So like the amount of processing power that it took for the person playing the deck to play it well was just inordinate, right? And so, it's not like a deck where you're like, oh my gosh, my opponent's just playing really slowly, they need to speed it up. It was like, no, in order for someone to play the deck quickly, they had to have a pretty high level of understanding, which is just
No,
bad magic.
it's a 5-head deck. It really is. It was a very hard deck to play optimally. It was accessible. You could play it at probably, if we were tier listing C talent, like a toilet gamer, you could play it on the toilet at about a C level and still win plenty of games. But to access the full potential of the deck, you had to use your brain, and that involved thinking while clicking and taking up every potential second of the freaking game. Or I can't. And just
oh my gosh.
And some people are picking on me in comments because they're like a control mage having this rant when they like to torture people. That was the other part. Made control unplayable. For 2 years. Unplayable.
Embarrassingly unplayable.
Embarrassingly unplayable. You had to go to Alchemy where you could play a card called Divine Purge to play control, like the traditional control. You could not be a cat plus an oven plus a trail. You were just out of the game like so fast, and for cards that cost so little that there was no decent removal for. That can't be stressed enough. We look at a card like March of Otherworldly Light. 2 mana would exile the cat or the oven. Did we have anything like that card? No. In the whole format, not even a bit. And say that you didn't like control. Say you liked creature decks. There was this little card called Claim the Firstborn.
No, that's PTSD inducing for me, CGB.
How's your Burrow? How's your Hydroid Krasis, Arjuna? How's your Hydroid Krasis you just spent a whole turn on? Is it slapping you in the face, Arjuna? Is it being turned into food, Arjuna? Is that what happened?
I'm like going down the list of all my favorite creatures to play, right? Whether I was Simic ramping or mono greening, it didn't matter. Claim the Firstborn just danced on my face. That card, dude.
Did we just go up a tier?
This is what I want to stress, okay? This is what I want to stress. It's like, Amazonian with the huge raid.
Let me hold your stress. Yeah, I'm going to bring you right back to it. Thank you.
Keep my bile.
Welcome in, everybody. We are doing a tier list of the greatest / most annoying standard decks in the history of Magic the Gathering arena, and I brought in my podcast co-host Arjuna. We haven't done a cast together since May, retired the cast, but he came in to do the show with me. So thank you, Amazonian, for sending all your friends. This is, I think, 3 raids in a row, so thank you so much for supporting the charity Streamathon. You are very, very cool, and welcome everybody. We were just talking about Cat Oven as the deck that we're covering right now and what tier to move it into. Show you the whole list in a minute. Arjuna, you had some bile. Take it away.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to shout out Amazonian, great content creator, notable Northwesterner, and just cool human. So thanks, Amy. You're awesome. I mean, this is what I wanted to talk about was like Eldraine. I think like we all know that Eldraine was a busted format, but sometimes you really have to remember that like there was just like a duo of draft uncommons that have dominated multiple formats for years. Years, CGB. I mean, like, this deck has been S tier for like forever, right? Just forever. I mean, in so many different formats. So it's just like it's kind of, and Claim the Firstborn was also like another freaking Eldraine card. So there's just like so many. It's hard for me to truly wrap my mind around just how busted that set was, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just
So
the uncommons. I think Cat's a common, just destroying format after format. Trail is an uncommon.
yeah.
You know, was this secretly like the best budget set ever printed?
Oh my God. I mean, could be, right? I mean, it's hard to find a bad card in the set, you know? Even some of the cards that weren't like top tier were still really, really good, right? You could build these Knights decks. There were like random Golgari adventure decks you could build. I mean, yeah.
All
So
right.
anyway, just a testament to the power.
We're
The
showing
power.
we're showing the Raiders the tier list here really quick. Right now we have Lukka Fires as our only S tier. In the A we have Temur Reclamation and Rogues. Again, this is standard decks that have been on Arena. We're evaluating them by their standard archetype and their time in standard. And then we have, you see, Temur Adventures, Sultai Ultimatum, Kethis Combo, etc. Like all of these cards kind of represent the key card of a deck that had its time. So where does it live? Where does the cat go?
I mean, I think in aggregate, I want to put it at A tier. It could even be S tier, but because we're looking at this through a standard lens, I don't think it was ever like standard was never the format that Cat Oven shined the most in, right?
I want to put in S tier so bad. The reason
You?
it didn't dominate standard is because of how stupidly broken each of those formats was. I mean, it was banned alongside Wilderness Reclamation, Teferi Time Raveler, and Growth Spiral, and Uro was allowed to stay, and this was banned.
Well, hey, if we're expanding the Venn diagram beyond standard, this card is absolutely S tier.
I'm not doing that.
But it was not S tier in standard. It just wasn't.
Fine. A tier. It's this little bastard cat gets an S in my heart.
Yeah, it's, you know what, kiddo? Mom thinks you're an S. All right, let's move on. All right, it's your pick.
It is my pick. Hinata.
Ooh, yeah.
Hinata.
Really interesting card, actually.
It actually is. This is one of the oddballs that, like, its dominant time was very brief, and it is still legal in standard now, but is a non-entity because of a different card's rotation.
Yep, totally. I mean, a fundamentally kind of horrible and broken card in a number of ways. I mean, when someone's got a Hinata online, it really is very, very miserable card to play against. But you know, fairly balanced. I mean, it's just another one of those 4/4 flyers for 4, right? And you know how I feel about those cards.
Low key, another gold span deck.
Yeah, I mean, highlighting the real hero here.
Here's Goldspan, here's Fable, here's Magma Opus, but the deck is called Jeskai Hinata. Yeah, I think that this one's a little bit easier to put in C. It was definitely a good deck. It wasn't a scam like these D tier decks, but yeah, pretty easy.
I will say, like casting a Magma Opus for 2 mana is really something. It's just something.
It's a vibe. It's a vibe. However, my fans will know that there was one particular game where I cast 3 of those and did not win. And it was against a Prismatic Bridge 130 card pile. And the rest is legendary history.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that is truly legendary. Yeah. Final thing to note about Hinata, making your fight spells cost 2 more was like a secret like nightmare mode for green decks. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to fight a Hinata. I'm like, how much do I have to pay for this? It was so horrible.
Your pick.
We can move along. All right. I'm gonna pick a card which I think you like more than I do. Let's go with the Ambusher.
Ooh, Nightpack Ambusher. No, I mean, I don't know if anybody likes this.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, that's true. Who I want to see in the chat. Who in the chat has like a genuine fuzzy feeling? You know what I mean? That like warm, like, ooh, I just want to go and play Magic right now feeling as a result of seeing Nightpack Ambusher. Because this might be like one of the most hated wolves and one of the most hated green. Well, okay, definitely the most hated wolf ever. I think we can put this at the S tier of wolves, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely most hated wolf. Competing, I think, like ahead of Uro. It arrived before Uro. It was probably one of the most hated green creatures ever until Uro showed up. So yeah, I would say so.
Oh, we have a lover, Death Renderer, the aptly named lover of the wolf. Nice.
we found one.
Okay, we got that.
So the way that I think of this deck, a similar trajectory to things that happened in the past. Came out, was kind of a ladder deck, a ladder meme. It couldn't beat mono red aggro, but it beat everybody who tried to play mid-range or control, and it did so in a very frustrating and incredibly annoying fashion, to the point where if you queued up with a deck like that, you often conceded on about turn 2 when you figured out what they were going to do. And then the pros eventually got a hold of it, and they turned it into a Growth Spiral Nissa deck, cards it didn't play in the past, and oh my god, did it become so much worse.
Okay, you know what the common denominator is here? Is Seth freaking Manfield, dude. Like,
true.
This is a classic example. Like, you take a deck that's kind of a meme on the ladder that you hate, and then all of a sudden Seth Manfield like reworks it, and now it's just like, I don't know, winning a Pro Tour perhaps. I don't know. Actually, no. This got to the final, but didn't it get beaten by Jund?
Yes, there were three of them though. Three of the 3 people who worked on it together all made top 8.
Yeah, and it was freaking Piotr Glagowski just like smacking him down.
Yep. Oh, you love that. There were 3 Simic flash decks and 1 Simic ramp deck from Andrea Mengucci in the top 8.
Yes, boy hat. I love that deck.
Pain Bacon.
That was a great moment, MTG Beast. That was one of that was kind of like the height of Arena right there. You know what I mean?
That was what Arena could and should be. Brad Nelson playing a toxic Simic flash deck, roping the more toxic Jund Food deck in the finals of a tournament.
It was peak, right? That was just like the peak of everything that we understood Arena to be.
The salt flowed and we loved it.
But yeah, this is definitely my most hated Simic deck of all time.
Ooh,
this is not.
You're a Simic fan.
Crafties, this is not what Simic was supposed to be.
Wow. So where does it go?
How about B tier?
You think B tier?
I mean, I can see an argument for C tier, but it was, I mean, 3 in a top 8 of a Pro Tour. I mean, that's
no A tier? No A tier?
I don't think it's A tier.
I'll go with B. B. Cool. It definitely existed in an era of mono red that, at least in terms of ladder, could, like, mono red farmed it pretty hard. So it was a pretty tough deck to play in that spot. In my opinion, it was the precursor to Rogues. When Rogues came along, it was so much worse than this because Rogues got under you in such a more dramatic way. Rogues didn't need a 4-drop, you know?
Yeah. So, exactly.
Tier list, thank you very much for the 5 gifted subs. I appreciate you. That was my pick, right? No,
it was my pick.
Oh, okay. My pick then. Golos.
Golos.
Yep.
The 2 longest syllables in Magic. I mean, okay. This is what I want to say about Golos right off the bat. Did anyone think when they first read this card that it was just going to be one of the most hated and banned cards of all time? Because I surely didn't.
The name is Ali Eldrazi. That's it. That's the list.
That's it.
That's the list.
I mean, nailed it. Yeah, I mean, it was banned from EDH. I mean, this is like, Golos is one of those people who's just been like kicked out of pretty much every bar he's ever gone into, right? Golos has like 1,000 lonely husbands, you know? It's like Golos has been slapped by every person Golos has ever dated. You know what I mean?
What the hell? Sure, dude. Sure.
Golos is like even Golos's mom hates him. You know what I'm saying?
Wasn't there a Scapeshift one? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a version with Scapeshift.
Yes, that was a Scapeshift.
Did they eventually cut it? Because like I keep finding this version, which was Circuitous Route, Once Upon a Time, Agent of Treachery. I guess this was right after Scapeshift rotated.
Could be.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why.
Could be.
I mean, and this was, if I remember correctly, Eldraine came out. The meta was destroyed in so many ways by the most busted set possibly of all time to ever hit a standard format. Mm-hmm. And Golos is what got banned.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Which tells you something, right? This tells you something.
Yeah. It was, holy, wow.
Holy crap. Holy crap. I mean, okay, let's talk about the combo, right? Because it's hard to mention Golos without saying Field of the Dead in the same sentence. They were really peanut butter and chocolate, you know?
True.
And I mean, and I think that's the thing. It's like, it wasn't quite enough to just have Golos, right? Like you needed some busted land to go and fetch with it. And Field of the Dead was the perfect card because it was basically, you know, you'd ramp from 5 to 6, and on the next turn you'd drop, you know, a land. And this is the squeeze, right? The vice that Golos put you in was that you had to kill Golos, otherwise on turn 7 you could probably activate it. And of course, anytime you activate a Golos, you basically feel like you're winning on the spot. So people had to deal with the Golos, right? But even if they did deal with the Golos, then there was Field of the Dead, which was going to get you as well. So it was just like, it was such a hard problem to solve.
So I was wrong. It actually was Field that was banned. Golos, I guess, lingered. And that just shows you, I never saw it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, that's what I'm saying, right? Is that without a card like Field, Golos goes back to just being like kind of annoying. Right?
I think, though, do I remember this right? What didn't the tournament that got this banned, like, it didn't win? It was like in the hands of Jean-Emmanuel Duprat, it didn't win. And wasn't there like, there were like 6 of the top 8 decks. One of them was a Field of the Dead deck. And like the rest, it was 40% of the field, but only one of the top 8. And 6 of the top 8 decks had Oko. And all the pros were saying, like, the only, like, this is, like, the Golos' only, like, role is to cover up how broken Oko is. And they didn't ban Oko. Yeah, that's what happened. Oh, yeah. Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
What a rascal.
Because, come on, Golos is just an elk after all.
Yeah. Oh, wait, was that the tournament that was taken down by Javier Dominguez playing like Embercleave or something?
Yeah, just straight up Gruel, maybe.
I don't remember if it was that tournament. But there was
removal
Gruel
spell.
aggro won one of those.
No removal spell Gruel. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing, man. That was, what a wild time to be playing Magic. Jeez.
The good old days now. We thought we'd never last. So where's Golos live?
I mean, come on, Golos, it's gotta be S tier, right?
S tier?
Gotta be.
I was thinking A.
I mean, I'm just thinking of I'm also thinking of historic, right? Because those Golos decks were so busted in historic.
But I said we're only gonna talk standard.
All right. I would accept.
If I can't S the cat, I couldn't S the cat because it's standard.
All right. I'll give it to you. All right.
Yep.
All right. Let's talk about Alrund's Epiphany.
Look at this.
Is Alrund's Epiphany like the Izzet turns deck?
It is.
Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Izzet
no,
turns.
I mean, yeah, you're right. We're down to the bangers. All right, so I'm gonna start off for the record by saying that, like, I'm a huge Alrund's Epiphany fanboy, and I'm kind of in that camp of like Alrund's Epiphany never did anything wrong, which is absurd to say. Okay,
you just lost the audience.
But remember, okay? Yeah, yeah. Silence from the chat. But it took galvanic iteration to really put this card over the top. And before that, it was merely just like one of the strongest cards instead. Okay. But like there was plenty of stuff that you could do with Auron's Epiphany that wasn't that busted. Okay. So I'm probably biased here a little bit, but like I wonder if Galvanic Iteration had never been printed, I don't know if Auron's Epiphany would have ended up getting banned.
How many Galvanic iterations were in the World Championship deck that ran Auron's Epiphany?
Oh, you mean what, Yuta Takahashi? Were there zero? Was
Zero.
that one?
There were none.
There were none.
Yeah, it was gold. Like he went
All
back.
right,
He went
okay.
back to 4 Goldspan Dragon, no iterations.
Well, that's it right there, okay? Witness protection, CGB, I'm telling you, witness protection. Dragon was the problem all along. This is what I'm saying, right?
Legitimate business dragon.
I did a legitimate business dragon. Exactly. This guy's not sitting on a secret pile of treasure. Okay, look, I'm not arguing that this card wasn't busted, all right? But I'm just saying that if you look at the history of like why people hated it, there was always some other super busted card that was like peeking around the corner. You know what I mean?
I think that what's interesting about this card is that when it got banned along with Faceless Haven from what appeared to be the 2-deck meta after Crimson Vow's release of Mono White and Izzet turns, we thought it might signify the end of the fire design philosophy bans. We thought it might be over because at that point, and then it did last for a while where there wasn't anything obviously ban worthy. Like just it seemed like things got to with the release of Kamigawa, you know, pretty balanced set with outliers like Fable that you can't really ban because they're, you know, you can't say that Fable needs to be banned, really. You can go down that rabbit hole, but then you learn that Wedding Announcement has to be banned. And, you know, there's a lot of good value cards, but there's nothing over the top busted that, like, defines this top end game that you cannot defeat. But, of course, Meat Hook eventually got the ban, and now everything's on the table all over again. This deck, though, it is, you forget how this defined what you could do in the format the way that Emergent Ultimatum did. Like, you have to be able to not just be ahead, but end the game by turn about 7, you know, after they got unexpected windfall and big score involved. Or they're just going to take all the turns and you lose. You know, from a very kind of unassuming board position, you just lose. Divide by Zero also got banned, by the way, just casually chilling. We got $100 donation from Matt. Thank you very much, Matt.
Wow. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, if you want to use your $100 benefit, which is to pick a future Commander for Historic Brawl video, make sure you put that in a message for me. Okay.
So, okay. So Izzet, I mean, let's take Izzet as a whole, because I feel like this deck really was emblematic of the dominance of Izzet for a long time in the format. And I feel like what interests me is that, so Simic was kind of like enemy number 1 for a while, right?
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about Simic was that when you actually saw like tournament winning decks, a lot of them didn't end up being like Simic decks outside of like Oko, obviously, which is, you know, key, right? But the difference was that these Izzet decks like crushed tournaments. Like these Izzet decks were just consistently winning everything. And it was like, they're like, well, but you know, ban Divide by Zero doesn't matter, Izzet's gonna win. Okay, then they banned Auron's Epiphany, doesn't matter, Izzet still gonna win. I mean, it's just like, it's hard to overstate how dominant these Izzet decks were at the very top tables.
It's true. So, pick the tier.
It's gotta be S tier, right?
S tier?
It's gotta
for
be.
Auron's Epiphany.
It's gotta be.
S tier. Wow.
I mean, just look, we've got Expressive Iteration, Goldspan Dragon, Alrund's Epiphany, Divide by Zero. I mean, come on, dude.
I am surprised.
Yeah.
I am surprised.
So dominant.
I mean, in its time, after the absence of all the busted Eldraine stuff after that rotation, Izzet absolutely was salt-inducing. But, I mean, Jeskai Lukka is standing alone as a level of broken and dominant like we never saw before. I just don't think I think it makes A. I don't think it makes S.
I could see A. I just think like this I don't know, that particular combination of cards, I'm taking it not just as like Alrund's Epiphany, but just the whole package has just been like this gargoyle sitting on top of standard for so long, you know.
I think a lot of that though was because, you know, the things that might have given it a hard time that we'll get to soon got banned.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I'll accept A.
All right. A is accepted.
A plus.
A plus plus. I want to get this one done. Runes. Okay. Because this is a funny one to me.
Yeah, I know. The one of these is not like the others, right?
Yep. Yeah. So let me get some Naya runes up here from way back in July of this year.
Ooh, history.
I think it kind of goes to show you how just people have a recency bias, and it's usually the deck that takes the longest but still beats them. This deck isn't a gold problem. It was a serious deck and a competitive deck. It was only together for a very brief period of time. And yeah, it could just absolutely pants you, and it was very, very difficult to compete with.
Yeah. Surprisingly good. This deck was surprisingly good.
I think that there was kind of a maybe just a little. We didn't think we should lose to a whole bunch of little auras.
That's true. Well, and I mean, this card was such a meme, like right up until it wasn't, right? So, and I think that this was some of the this was like the long tail of Kaldheim showing itself. Kaldheim secretly being like one of the more busted recent sets.
Yep. It was definitely the best set still standing in that rotation. Goldspan Dragon hanging out. But yeah, the runes had their moment. It was very brief, teaming up with the Kamigawa enchantment enablers. And green-white enchantments still out there getting people to Mythic today on a pretty good budget.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where to tier it. It feels like a C or a B.
Yeah, it had some weaknesses. I'd probably put it in the C tier.
Did you ever drop an Archon of Emeria against this deck?
I wasn't playing white, but I was aware that was a thing you could do.
Oh,
that was, pretty
my
nasty.
God.
Pretty nasty.
Often, I mean, let's have a look at this. This was the part that people missed. No removal spells.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah. Didn't need them.
Archon, we're done.
Yeah, didn't need him. Except against the Archon. I'm sure people started sideboarding removal once that card showed up.
Yep. It was usually on the board. Of course, as a best of one gamer, I just laughed.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. I think I'm gonna nominate the next least busted card in my opinion, which is Embercleave.
The Cleave. Believe in the Cleave. Oh my goodness. So let's look up. This might take me a minute, so get started for me.
Okay, so this is what I remember. Oko got banned, and I was playing on the ladder, and I remember there was like some aggro deck that put down a dork, put down another dork. They did their thing, and they Embercleaved me on turn 4, and I lost. And I remember thinking, wow, I didn't see that coming. Pretty cool. All right, whatever. So like a few games go by and I'm doing my thing or whatever. And then the same thing happens, right? Turn 4 Embercleave, dead. And I thought, wow, all right, this Embercleave card, like maybe it's a thing. And then like, it was like a day later, it was just everywhere. It was like, I mean, you couldn't you couldn't go to the bathroom without getting Embercleave. You know what I mean? It's like it's like you're like, oh, I'm gonna eat my cereal. You open your fridge to get the milk, Embercleave in the face, double strike. It's just everywhere. It's like I wonder if there's like a card that has single-handedly won more raw numbers of games on Arena than Embercleave.
Yeah,
right?
we've talked about that, and I think it.
Yeah.
I think it has. I bet if we saw the stats, it's not close. I bet that Embercleave has won more games of Arena than any card in history, and I don't think it's close. Fervent champion, robber of the rich. It got to be so common that I basically made a meme song about it that people still remember to this day and associate with me. And I've had a playlist going at night while I sleep for this streamathon, and there are some videos from that era. And watching them, I'm kind of like watching them as I like nod in and out of sleep. Like every other game is this freaking deck. And every single like turn 3 to turn 4 decision revolved around Embercleave. And oh my god. And it was giving me like I had forgotten, and then Celine Dion, it's all coming back to me now. I hated this card then, I hate this card now. Just the it's so easy to cast, and it just ends the game. The game is just over. Sometimes no decisions were actually made. And as evil CGB, it was the birth of evil CGB. This is how evil CGB was born. He came on the show, and he played mono red, and he said, I've never read it, but it works like this. If the sword is lit, we legit.
That was like an early CGB banger, right?
Yes.
That was that was when we got introduced to like the Muhammad Ali side, the wisecracking CGB. So yeah, I mean, when I look down this deck list, I mean, these are like some of the strongest cards to ever mono red, right? In Fervent Champion, just boom, turn 1 in trouble. Steamkin, one of the strongest, mono red 2-drops. Anax, I mean, Anax is a good Magic card, CGB.
Yep, it really is.
I remember I was playing a cube that was like shortly after the release of that Theros Beyond Death set. And I remember like Anax was like the card that overperformed for me. I was like playing all these busted cards, and I was like, wait, is Anax just secretly like one of the greatest Magic cards ever? Such a good. And then let's not forget Bone Crusher Giant. Amazing card. Torbrand. I mean, it's just like you go down the whole list.
Bangers.
Every card's a banger.
I mean, did you ever go through the Robber of the Rich game where they stole like 4 cards from you and played them all?
I've lost to some Robber of the Rich. I'll say that.
You know what the best was you hit that Scry land, right? And you get that needed card on top, and they always had the robber.
Yoink.
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 Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so I also want to say like there was some really notable like not aggro mages who sleeved up some permutation of this deck for some of like the highest stakes tournaments.
Seth
ever.
Manfield?
Yeah, Seth Manfield just putting on an absolute clinic, by the way, playing this deck in the World Championship.
Seth just took everything from like the decks that people hated the most on Arena Ladder.
He did.
He was the true Arena champion.
Freaking Seth Manfield, man. The hero that like every freaking gold gamer needed in their life. So, I mean, LSV, I mean, I can't think of a less mono red mage than LSV. Totally sleeved up mono red for one of those tournaments. I mean, this deck had legs. And it had a surprisingly high skill ceiling. Watching Seth Manfield play the deck in the World Championship blew my mind. I was like this deck is deep. This deck goes way deep. So yeah, it was amazing deck.
And Paulo got his, big World Championship win playing a deck that was unplayable outside of that field. Like, just got pantsed by Adventures, blue-white control. But he won that tournament because he was one of the few people who showed up with a list that could beat mono red.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That's what he had to tear his way through.
Yeah. Yeah, it was that life gain, right? It was the no, what was that? What was that
Archon,
card?
no, you're right. It's Archon of Sun's Grace, I believe.
Archon of Sun's Grace.
And
Yeah,
Dream
that was
Trawler.
like
Yeah.
that was a nightmare. Yeah, Dream Trawler and Archon, the mono red nightmare.
Yep. No.
Yeah.
Tier for mono red, tier for the cleave. Do you still believe in the cleave?
Tough way to put it. I mean, it's between B and A.
I can get behind A. It's got the
a bit of a
title.
hard
It's got the
sell.
title. It's won more games of Arena than any card in Arena history, in my opinion.
This is a tough one for me. Like, is it better than Adventures, right? Is it better than Sultai Ultimatum? Is it better than Cycling? It was always arm wrestling with all of those decks.
It
right?
was. Oops.
Yeah.
My bad. Misclick. Oh well. Gotta move on.
All right, chat. I see what's going on here.
Look at the believers. There are believers spamming S in the chat.
Nemesis. What this illustrates is that one of us played decks that were more scared of this deck than the other of us.
Some of us made a living having to wake up every day figuring out how to beat this card.
Fair enough. All right, back to you.
Oh, that was your pick, huh?
Yeah.
Nexus of Fate.
All right, let's go.
Hold
on, CGB. I want to call up Chris Patello. I'll be back in a moment.
Oh yeah, so what I've got here in front of me is the Simic Nexus list that was first place at Mythic Championship 3 in Las Vegas. Something I want to highlight about Nexus on Arena, when we're talking about the history of Magic Arena, this was the first card to ever get banned exclusively for best of one because of an incident that happened where an MPL member, somebody that Wizards was paying and contracted to stream the game, MTG Arena, was on ladder and played against somebody who went into Nexus of Fate loops with no win con. And untimed game, it was Shaheen Sarani, right? No, that's wrong. Why am I blanking out his name? He won Worlds twice. Shahar Shenhar. That's his name. I apologize for getting that wrong. He sat there for 3 hours until live while watching. Like, the stream kept getting bigger and bigger. I think it was up to like 3,000 viewers. Eventually, Wizards banned the Nexus player to end the game. Banned their Arena account while it was live on stream.
Whoa, they had to go down to the basement and throw a big red lever. That's intense, dude. Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, I don't know if they got it back or not. Okay, shout out to Saruman, who says rip to a legend.
Yeah, that took Shahar out of the game. Shahar was like, you know what, screw this Magic game, I'm done. So yeah, I mean, this card was stupid. Here's another thing that made this card stupid. It was like the buy a box promo. Wasn't it?
Buy a box promo.
Yeah, I mean, what a choice, right?
What a whale card.
Yeah, the
only
ultimate
available in foil.
Yeah. I mean, definitely big Arena. This was a big incentive to play Arena, right? Was that you spend the same wild cards to craft this as you do to craft anything else?
Yeah, I guess it was good for that. We can give it that. But there was a toxicity to this deck that also just sent people into the salt stratosphere.
Yeah.
Just it could go off very early. Around turn 5, you could just start looping Nexus of Fate, and it was possible to never miss. It was possible.
Yeah. I mean, card's miserable, deck's busted, everyone hated it. How good actually was it? Now this is where I'm kind of blanking. So it won at least one tournament, but was it really dominant, or was it just we hate it level?
This is pre-Fire design philosophy. Like this might have been one of the very first ones, but this is right before Golos and Field and Scape Shift became a thing in the format. This is before the Kethis deck took off. Like
this is like heavy like War of the Spark energy going on here.
Yep. War of the Spark was, I think, the most recent set when this did its thing.
For sure. So yeah, that's the missing piece for me, because obviously the card itself is just busted, right? But I don't know how far it actually got on the competitive circuit. Like I'm tempted to give it A tier, but not S tier.
I can go with A tier. I think it's one of these, and I think you're right. I think A is pretty good. Your pick.
All right. There are no not busted cards left. All right. Let's go with a card that I both loved and hated. Oro, Titan of Nature's Wrath.
I am trying. So I put Uro down here to kind of symbolize like there were all these different decks that utilized it, and I think I put it like eventually I decided to put it down here for like the just like Nissa ramp, you know, like Bant Nissa ramp. So post Oko, pre ultimatum reclamation.
Okay, I'm trying to think of like a really archetypal Oro list, and in standard I'm struggling, right? Because there wasn't like the Oro list, was there?
Because like no, not really. You
didn't play it in Clover if you were smart.
I will say this. I'll say this. It was peak Crokies was the Bant Nissa Uro Krasis list that he just crushed it with for like 2 months, and he also blew up as a streamer during that time. And like everything he did with that deck kind of made waves.
Yeah, it's true, but it wasn't like that deck wasn't really adopted at the top tier as much, was it?
I think it was, but there weren't many events during that time. It was like this brief 3-month time in a very broken format. Yeah.
So this is what I'm struggling with, right? Because Uro is like, the card itself is an S tier card, right?
Yes.
But in standard specifically, we struggle. I'm having a hard time remembering like a really top tier. I think there was a period where like Sultai Control running Nissa and Uro, and kind of topping out with cards such as like Casualties of War and Krasis and stuff. I remember that being like a really strong deck.
Yeah.
You know, like an A/B tier kind of strong deck.
And that was right near the end of that format before the 4 cards got banned. Yeah.
And that was one of the few decks that really had a strong game against Temur Adventure, which is one of the reasons I remember, because I was just like getting surprisingly clowned by the deck. But so that's what I'm struggling with here, right? Because like as problematic of a card as it was, it managed to kind of skate through standard and enable a surprising number of really fun Ali Eldrazi decks, right? I mean, this is like the ultimate Ali Eldrazi card.
Yeah,
really.
And it existed in a world of Embercleave, and you know, it's like it didn't kill mono red on its own. Like not on Arena. Like in the tournament scene, it did. On Arena, it didn't. Yeah,
for sure. So you know, as far as ranking, boy, it's really tough for me. It's really tough. I almost feel like Oro is like the most busted card to never have like a truly iconic deck behind it.
I think you're right. And I also like this comment in chat. It was the last great Simic card.
It was. And I remember reading it and being like, WTF.
Yeah, we both did. Yeah. that was one of our early shows, like where it was both just like, okay, I guess that's the best card in the set. Why are we talking? Yeah,
I know. It was clearly ahead of Croxa at the time too, which is funny because I think in retrospect, Croxa's probably won more games now, right? You know, that it's kind of ridden the ascendancy of Rakdos. Somehow Rakdos is like one of the strongest color combinations in Magic.
I still think it's so weird that in that set there was a Rakdos god and a Simic god, and those 2 color combinations were already like pushed to the freaking moon. And I was just
ridiculous.
I was like, what the heck? Or the Elder Giant, I guess, not a god.
Yeah,
but
you're like, where's
busted...
my giant? Wah, 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 Paul White.
Yeah, the busted escape mythic was just the most. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know where to put it, to be honest.
Yeah. Me neither. I mean, I think that the Uro decks in aggregate were probably B tier. I think like in its best spots, Uro probably managed to be A tier.
I'm going to go B because I just don't. I like you. It's tough to find a deck that like is iconic for it. And most of these cards, when you read the card, you're like, that's the deck. You just see one card art, and you're like, that's the deck. Yeah.
That's it. So yeah, Uro somehow skating by in the B category.
All right, I picked Teferi.
All right. I mean, is there a more CGB card?
When Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, was in Standard, oh my god, what? How do I even begin to explain this? There was this is back when they had paper Magic tournaments with live coverage on Twitch on the weekend.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be a Pro Tour. It could be like a GP or something like that. And like what I remember was this light bulb moment that I think perfectly defines this card and why people hate it so much, but also what made it great. And this is not, by the way, the deck. I'm just getting it up there, getting something up there. The fact that Teferi could tuck itself. Teferi could target itself to put itself back in the library so that you could get the emblem and then run your opponent out of lands, exile all their lands, and never deck. So you didn't need any other win con.
Yeah.
And you could just sit there and wait for them to run out of cards. It's so toxic yet beautiful.
It's psychopathic. It's like a truly psychopathic level. Yeah. So, okay, this is the interesting thing though, right? Teferi is another one of these cards where if we look at the sweep of history, it's like an S tier card, but I don't remember it being dominant in the standard that it was in, like pretty much ever. Like I remember it being, really? It was kind of, I mean, this is my memory. Maybe I phased out during like a particular part of the meta game, but I remember there were these large swaths of time where everyone knew that Teferi was like a next level powerful card, but they were struggling to find the right shell for it.
I remember it became like a 2-deck format. Like I thought that it like mid-range kind of got abolished and it became like mono red versus this kind of no-win con Teferi.
Teferi control. Okay, yeah. So I may have just missed that. I wasn't creating content during that time, so I was kind of in and out.
Yeah. The podcast was just a little gleam in Arjuna's eye, a few brain cells, getting fired up. Yeah, this was a while ago now. Somebody also mentioned that Bant Nexus of Fate became a thing eventually with Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, and Nexus of Fate, and that's very true as well. Yeah.
It just interests me that there was a span of just literally months and months and months where Teferi was just, it didn't have the shell around it. The metagame wasn't supporting it. And it really wasn't like a tier 1 card for a long time.
But also to speak on the arena side of it, people eventually learned on the arena ladder that if Teferi lasted 1 turn, they were done.
Yeah, that's true.
And there was that,
true.
There was a couple weeks of me like playing this deck where it's like, all right, I emblem, I exile your stuff, and people would like play it out. Like they were like, what's going on? Eventually you would just untap with Teferi and they'd scoop.
Yeah.
So in kind of that rogues kind of tradition of just developing the level of salt that only busted cards can do.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to think of a planeswalker that's more enraging to have to kill like 4 copies of, right? It's like, you fight through the first Teferi and it's hard, right? It's always a battle. Like you almost never get offered a free Teferi, right? So you have to devote all of your attention to killing it. And then when your opponent drops that second or that third Teferi, it's just so despair-inducing. It's so tough.
How do we tier him?
This one's you, man.
It's all me.
It's all you.
It's all me. Honestly, I'm going to give it a B. I don't think it belongs here. This is like a whole other level of degenerate compared to Teferi. Teferi was degenerate in his time, but we were all babies and we didn't know what the future held.
It's true. It's true. And I don't know, like, I don't think Teferi can truly go toe to toe against like some of the nastiest from Eldraine, for example.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of bad stuff to come. So 2 left.
All right. Well, let's go with the lesser of 2 evils then. Let's talk about Omnath.
Let's talk about Omnath.
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 Omnath. Omnath. Omnath.
Omnath. Omnath. Omnath. All right. So, I mean, CGB went on record, called this as the strongest card in the set by a mile. It absolutely was. And I mean, here's the real question, CGB. What text didn't they print on Omnath?
There were they had so many. It's like a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like they had so many chances to turn back.
Yeah, it's true.
They had
so true.
So many chances to make this card a little less of an absolute disaster. I think this was like one of my day one decks or whatever. Like, obviously it's not what the deck turned out to be, but there were just so many things wrong with Omnath. I just don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember firing up my trusty Clover deck and going into the meta and getting like turn 4 or turn 5 by like one of those Omnath decks that ran like Escape to the Wilds and the Temur Ultimatum.
Genesis Ultimatum,
Yeah. And it was like, it was hard for me to imagine that much crap happening that early in a game of Magic. I mean, it was like, to say it was like an avalanche going off was like an understatement, you know? That was like having the entire mountain just dropped on you.
I can't believe they banned Uro to keep Omnath around for another 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And then banned it anyway.
Legitimate business ooze, CGB.
Elemental, gumdrop, whatever. But yeah, this deck went on to be, it was 7 out of 8 of the decks at the next Mythic Championship, to the surprise of nobody. It was a mirror match in the final in an adventure shell. The card, I don't know. The first time I read it, I was like, it's like, this just isn't fine. This is insane. And this was right after they had banned 4 cards a month ago, you know? And people were like, 4 colors. It's got to be hard to cast. It's not hard to cast. And it was in a format with Fabled Passage. Fabled Passage was like printed and then reprinted into M21 after being in Eldraine, just to make sure. And I remember last fall when Innistrad Midnight Hunt arrived, one of the things I said is, today would have been the day that Omnath would have rotated.
It just boggles the mind.
But
it literally boggles the mind. I cannot imagine it.
Literally made it two or 3 weeks in standard. I just can't imagine what it would have been like for another, years.
You know what's hilarious, CGB? So people played this Omnath deck in standard, fairly quickly got banned. And then they basically sleeved up almost the exact same deck and took it to historic. Yeah. And it rocked out for another couple of weeks, and then it got banned there too, right?
And now Omnath in Modern has won some big events this year. Not kidding.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And it's one of these cards that's also like, it's like just waiting to pop up in Legacy or whatever and win as well, right? Like, it's like you're never safe. Your kids are never really safe with Omnath in the neighborhood.
Oh, God. I think that's too many ways. And on Arena in particular, a place where they could just ramp out their Omnath and then do a million triggers and take a turn that lasted 20 minutes and then probably win, maybe not, but probably win. It definitely defined a new level of salt. In the early access event, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. The names will be redacted to preserve reputations, but notable. And I mean, like, people who full-time play Magic for a living, streamers and content creators, scooped to me on turn 1 when they figured out I was playing Omnath with rune crabs in it.
That's dirty. Yeah. That deck was dirty, dude.
On day 1. Day 1.
Yeah. No, I was scooping to Omnath on day 1 too. I was just over it. I was like, never talk to me in my stream again. And this card, I don't know if you remember CGB, but this card like drove me hard out of standard. I mean, I quit. I just quit standard. I played limited and historic for like, and I was like, don't even talk to me until that card's banned in standard.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah.
If you watch my videos from that like 2-week period before it got banned, I was just showing up every day to work, man, just depressed, just trying to think of a reason not to jump out that window at the high-rise building, man, just trying to get through my day.
Yeah. You're in the bourbon drinking phase of your Magic career. So, I mean, it's got to be S tier, right?
Yes, I was gonna say that too. I was gonna say I've got an S for Omnath. I don't.
There's no debate. I think it's just
a whole other level of busted.
Yeah.
There's only one left.
Isn't it shocking to think there's like actually a card that's better than Omnath?
So I want to. This is one of my favorite videos of all time. Mentioned somebody that you already mentioned on the show, so I'm going to try to look it up here. Danny T. Law standard.
Danny.
I think that the name of this YouTube video, as intended, what standard was meant to be.
Yeah.
And I'll see if I can find like deck list or something. But in a nutshell, it was, it really was at the core when we played the games. At the core, it was Oko decks versus, you see the arrows. Look at all the arrows. But it was Oko versus Omnath. Like at the core, most of this video that we made was a lot of these two just going at it. Here's another just random pop in.
It's just like anywhere you go, there's just like Oko and Omnath on the field.
Random screenshot probably looked a lot like this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and as I remember it as well, it was like the person who reserved Oko first was like heavily favored to win, right? I mean,
it was tough.
Yeah, there was a lot of elking of Omnaths happening.
You were playing your cards hoping they were good enough to demand being elked, which by the way was still a plus ability, so that at least your elk was something that could attack Oko.
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh. Like this has to be the ultimate like everyone missed it card in Magic, right? I mean, there was a lot of debate. There was
a lot of debate on if it was good. Not everybody missed it, but there was a lot of debate.
But I don't think anyone came out and was going to be like, this is actually like perhaps the most powerful Magic card of all time, right?
Somebody did, and I'm trying to remember their name for the credit, but I can't, so I'm not gonna try. But somebody did, and they were they were like mocked on some podcasts for it. Yeah.
But I mean, I think maybe some of the Power 9 is like more powerful than Oko or whatever. But like Oko it really is in a class of its own. And I mean, it's been banned everywhere.
Everywhere. Here you go. I found this highlight from the Mythic Championship, the only Mythic Championship that Oko was legal in where Golos was not legal, the only one where Oko had been out for more than a month at the time of playing it. Oko decks are 69% of the metagame.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so it really is like, it's just kind of amazing. It still kind of blows my mind like how strong this card is. I still sometimes like read it and I think like, is it really as good as I remember it being? And it really just is.
You can't
it
play
just
it.
really is that
you can't play it anywhere, so it's hard to tell now. like we can't go back and like
Yeah.
test it and be like, oh yeah, it's busted. When Danny and I played that challenge, there was a lot of like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, here
Yeah.
you go. There are more breeding pools than mountains, plains, and swamps combined.
Yeah.
Let me say that again. There are
Yeah.
more breeding pools than mountains, plains, and swamps combined.
Oh, it's so filthy. It's so filthy. And I mean, it's actually kind of funny to me that like Commander literally the only place you can play Oko
Yeah,
in Magic?
yeah.
And limited, right? Commander and limited. It's like the only places you can still play Oko.
They give you dirty looks, but you can do it.
Yeah.
They do not like their commander being elked at all. No, you get attacked for playing Oko 100%.
Yeah, I think it's basically just a testament to how weak Planeswalkers are in Commander. That's really the only reason. But yeah, I mean, the card is just, however good you think Oko is, it's just clearly better than that. And what a rascal too. I mean, just look at that guy. Like, I mean, if you saw your like daughter getting on the back of a motorcycle riding off with Oko, like no good is gonna come of that, right?
She ain't coming home.
Yeah, right. You're gonna have an elk clattering in at 4 a.m., right?
Your daughter became an elk. Okay, this is getting all kinds of bad. A more punchable face than CGB. Oh, I guess. I mean,
in his own chat, no less. Now that's a courageous person right there.
I don't like surrendering that, but okay. Okay.
So
I mean, is there anything to talk about?
I mean, it's clearly S tier. I mean, it's like S plus, right? I mean, there could literally be like another tier just for this card.
We could call it the O tier, the big O tier.
The O tier, yeah. Yeah, the elk tier.
The big elk tier. There you go.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, it's kind of confession time, but like I crafted 4 Okos after the Eldraine release, and I loved playing that card, man. I mean, it was dominant in the funnest way. And it of course needed to get banned, and it wasn't gonna stay fun forever. But like, dang, were those first couple of days with Oko just a fun time.
I was telling you about the playlist that's on while I sleep. One of the videos that came on my first night here on the Streamathon was the first video with Eldraine. My very first game, in my first video with Eldraine, I played a turn 2 Oko. I lost that game. I played so badly. No, I played so badly, dude. Like, I'm sitting there like watching myself, being like, just elk the Cauldron of Eternity. You know, just swap for their Wicked Wolf. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, and I think that's the only time I turned 2 Oko and lost.
Yeah. I mean, they're just like some of the play you know, like you like elk your goose for the win, you know, or like some of the lines that you found with Oko, or like you secretly forgot that it had that steal ability, right? Every once in a while, you just totally get got by the steal ability. Yeah.
Well, we're going back to Eldraine in the fall.
That's right.
Yep. So we're looking for, wish list. It's Christmas time, Christmas list. Can we just get a straight up reprint of Oko Thief of Crowns?
Oh no. Yeah, I just get banned again. Second ban. I mean, I'm curious. Okay. So I have to imagine that the next printing of Oko is going to be a 4-drop. And it's not going to be very good. Like, imagine if they made the next Oko really good as well. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I think that when we see it, there is no, like, we can't live up to that bar, It's just, the bar is too high. So no matter what it is, it won't live up to what they're hoping for. But it is, in my opinion, without question, it is now just part of Magic history. And we can look back on it with kind of a, when you were in it, it was hell. Now we look back on it like, well, we survived that. I guess Magic will survive anything.
Magic is not actually dead. I'm curious the next time like Magic design is going to go that off the rails, what as it concerns, I mean, some people think that Modern Horizons 2 was another set that was kind of like Eldrainified Modern, right?
Yeah.
And I don't really have a dog in that fight, but I am curious, like, they've clearly scaled Standard way back, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing in the Brothers War that can go toe to toe with any of the best of Eldraine, M20, Kaldheim.
Like, where would just think about where we would put Fable or Sheoldred on this list, or the Wandering Emperor. It would be C at best, best, and we'd have to debate it. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So it's good to keep that in perspective. They have successfully powered down Standard. And yeah, so I'm really interested where they're going to go from here, because clearly, that we may never get another Eldraine. I'm sure we're never going to get another Ikoria, right? I mean, Ikoria might be like the weirdest Magic set ever printed. So that's not going to happen, but I am kind of curious, like, they have to push it somehow.
Well, history says you've got about 12 to 15 years. Magic first came out, Alpha, Arabian Nights, a lot of busted cards in there, and they got them all out for 4th edition. And then they also went through like Urza's Saga, and they got through all that, and then they got all powered down, right? And then it was like Affinity was like 10 years after the release of the official thing. Like the Affinity, Darksteel, like Mirrodin was absolutely busted, and they had to go through that power down. And then it was like 12, 13 years. I think we went 12 years without a ban in Standard. So yeah,
wow.
Like 10 on the low end, probably 15 on the high end, but long enough for a total generational change to happen at the Wizards of the Coast headquarters, as far as people making the cards. And then the young whippersnappers, the new hires, will have to learn this lesson all over again.
I mean, are we just all going to be playing Commander at that point? Is the game just going to be Commander the Commandering?
No. There'll be something like Arena that'll like, people are saying that Standard is dying if they play a lot of paper and MTGO, but like, it is the most played format on Arena. It's not close, and it's the best place for Standard is on Arena. There will be kind of Magic quick and dirty is what you can sell it as. You don't have to sit down and shuffle. You don't have to have friends to play with. You're just literally a toilet gamer. You can sit down and, squeeze one out and smash some rank, and then you're off on your day. So something like Standard will always exist, but it won't be like what we knew it as, back in the day.
Yeah. Well, to say, like, overall, even though it was a wild time, I feel kind of privileged to have played during this era of Magic, and during the kind of the ascendancy of Arena. It really was, like, in some ways kind of the best of times and the wildest of times. And it's kind of funny how, like, we remember it as a struggle, but now when we look back on it, we're all kind of glassy-eyed about it, right? And I mean, there's just something compelling about holding power. It's like we all, it's like everyone in the Lord of the Rings, like, they all want to hold the ring for a moment, and like we got like a whole grip full of them, we got to wear the ring. And so, I, for one, I'm really thankful that I got to be like as engaged as I did throughout all of this.
Me too. We did a lot of this together. Good times.
We did.
And so,
we did.
Yeah, nice to kind of get back together and revisit that. Thank you for diving on this just out of nowhere, really. Like, this wasn't planned.
Dude, my pleasure, man. I was hoping that at some point we'd, tap in on this or that. So I really appreciate you making space for me today. I also just wanted to shout out all the crafties. I still see comments on your videos, CGB, with people reminiscing about the podcast or giving me a shout out here and there. And I just wanted to say, like, the crafties are just like the best of the best of the gamers, right? The crafties are right up there with the cool kids club members and just like a very small elite number of people who just like truly hold a place in my heart. So you're all wonderful. Like I'm so glad that we got to do this today. CGB is the best, and I feel really honored to be here.
It's kind of wild. People still watch these. Look, this is 90,000 views.
Wow.
I think it had. Wow. I think it had like 15, maybe 20 when we released it, and it keeps going. There's another one. I think it's Forgotten Realms. Let me see here. I think it's called Everything You Need to Know About the Forgotten. Yeah, 109,000.
Dang, dude. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you, CGB? I was like, podcast content has a long tail.
Yeah.
I'm glad people didn't disappoint.
Yeah, I think they just listen to it now to hear your voice. That's my theory.
Oh, shucks.
Oh, shucks. Guys, chat, give it up for Arjuna. Give me, for all of you who have come into my chat, all the time. This happens every time I stream. Where's Arjuna? When's ArenaCraft podcast happening again? What happened to Arjuna? How's Arjuna? What does Arjuna smell like? No, maybe they said that once.
I love this. I love the people's. Did he say turtle? Yeah. All right. Are you ready, chat? All right. We're gonna do it. All right. All right. Deep breath. Turtle. that was for all of y'all in the back there.
Absolutely.
And MTG Nerd Girl as well.
For real. Let's bring it on in.
All right. Oh yeah. We gotta go out. Go out with a bang, baby.
Don't you have an outro?
Yes. Well, that's gonna do it for today, crafties. Thank you once again for joining us. You can find us probably less places than you used to be able to.
Still on YouTube, baby.
But I'm still around. I'm on Twitter until that sinks into the ocean. And big love for the Craft Nation. I still think about you all the time. I still watch CGB's videos all the time. Oh. And I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, thanks once more to CGB. Thank you to the dojo for having me. Just wanted to say, donate that money, people. It makes such a big difference. I've seen CGB do a lot of epic stuff, but this is kind of next level. Like what's happening right here is just like a whole new tier of CGB. So just wanted to encourage everyone to really show up for that, and give generously. It makes such a big difference in people's lives. So, I feel really fortunate that I got to contribute in some small way towards that as well. And so with that, crafties, go forth, be bold, fear not the gremlins of mono red, fear not the pitchforks of mono white. You are strong, you are creative, you are crafty. We will always prevail. And now, CGB, I hand it over to you.
Later, crafties.